The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is sponsored by Two Fat Lardies and also by the generous donations of you, the listener. A huge thank you goes to Dean Clark, Frederick Lukov, Tobias Whiting, Marcus Wheeler, Tim Crane, Alex McIntosh, David Jakowsin, Glenn Oberhauser, and Eric Shirk. Guys, thank you so much for your generous support. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast, episode 166. Interviews with Second Thunder and Modiphius Entertainment. With hosts Neil Shuck, Mike Hobbs and Mike Whitaker, and guests Carl Brown of Second Thunder and Chris Birch of Modiphius Entertainment. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast, brought to you from the land of Britannia. I'm Neil Shuck, and once again I am joined by a brace of Michaels. We have Mike Hobbs.
Hello.
Hello, Mike. How you doing, mate? You alright?
Very well, thank you.
Good man. And also from the wilds of Peterborough, Mr. Mike Whitaker. Hello, mate.
Hey up. That's me failing to be Dux Britanniarum this week.
How you doing? Are you any better?
No, I've got my son's cold. Thank you so much, James.
All right, so we can look forward to nice stuffy dulcet tones from you on this podcast then.
That had a lot of use of the mute button.
That's the sound of my coughing.
Oh, hopefully that was the sound of Mike hitting the mute button and then coughing.
It was a bit. Let's face it, it was a very aggressive mute.
Yes.
Yeah, well, it was either that or splutter all over the pair of you. It was Hobbsy last episode, so it's about my turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm worried. We're obviously spreading this virus electronically, so I'm bound to be next.
Wahaha.
Yeah. Excuse me. Is there a microphone sanitizer in the house? Yeah.
No, I think they were on the B arc. Now there's an obscure reference.
That was a really good reference.
Which was great because you went exactly where I was going.
Yeah.
Just proving we're a bunch of culturally well-educated chaps.
As well as being somewhat old.
I wasn't going to mention that if you weren't.
Yeah, too late. Oh, no. Right, so thank you once again for tuning in. And I hope you've been enjoying what we've been doing with this new somewhat longer format podcast. We've had lots of positive feedback. So thank you very much to everybody who's been very kind to come back to us with their comments, and we really do appreciate it. Apologies if there's anybody who I've yet failed to reply to their email. Life has been somewhat busy, and I have to say a huge thank you to Mr. Whitaker for stepping up and helping me on the editing job, because all of a sudden our editing appeared to have doubled.
And then somebody went swanning off to a tournament.
Yeah, well, we'll come to that in a minute. But yes, I mean, it's just terrible. I mean, just deciding to have a day off over a weekend just so they can go and play a war game. I mean,
that's dreadful, isn't it?
It's terrible, isn't it? I don't know.
Leaving us alone.
What is the world going to? It's terrible. So I suppose we'll fill you in on what we've got planned for this particular episode. Well, more interviews. We seem to be doing a lot of interviews at the moment, but I suppose it's going to be that thing, especially on the lead up to Salute. There's an awful lot of things happening, and there's loads of people who want to come and talk to us about stuff. So we've got lots of interviewee type shows at the moment, but hopefully. These things are interesting, and we've got a couple of different things coming up in the near future as well, which I'm quite looking forward to. Some things that are slightly, war games related, but slightly different from our usual fare.
But buckle in, chaps, because on this episode, Carl's back.
Uh-oh.
Indeed, the man himself, Carl Brown.
The man who actually helped us define the term press play on the interviewee and sit back.
Indeed. Luckily this time he hasn't brought Gav with him. It isn't the Gav and Carl show part 3.
Do you think that's going to help?
Well, yeah, maybe not.
No. But luckily I've got a whole bunch of Napoleonics to paint up, so that's what I'm going to do when I'm listening to this.
Oh, that's why you were asking the questions. Yeah, so, yes, we've got a couple of interviews. Obviously, we've got our usual bits and pieces. So we'll be talking about what we've been doing in the hobby. We'll be covering some hobby news, and we'll be diving into the mailbag once again. But as I say, for our main 2 features of the show, first off, we're speaking to Carl Brown, aka Second Thunder. And we're talking to him on the occasion of the birth of Open Combat, as in the physical product has finally arrived. Actually, as we're recording this, it arrived yesterday. And as you'll hear, Carl seems to be quite effusive about his new baby. So
I still forgot to ask who First Thunder are.
Aren't they a rock band?
We're not getting back to asking that, Mike. We haven't got time.
And then we're also going to be talking to Chris Birch from Modiphius Entertainment. Now, Modiphius, you may recall, we spoke to Chris, 18 months ago, 2 years ago now, about the Achtung Cthulhu Kickstarter back in the day. They've also done several things since, including the Thunderbirds board game, and actually they're just doing the Conan RPG. Did you know about that, Mike?
Which one of us?
Mr. Hobbs.
Yes, I did. I'm very much aware.
I'd seen it. I hadn't. What's the word? Punted.
Yeah, I was tempted, but I don't do much RPG, and I just.
And what sort of excuse is that?
Yeah.
It's source material for the board game.
Yeah, stop trying to convince me.
For that, you just buy a large pile of Robert E. Howard novels, since it does look as though the board game folks have basically immersed themselves in everything he ever wrote.
Yeah, I've got.
Well, yeah, I did buy the. I think I bought the complete Conan collection on Amazon. Yeah.
For about 99p, it's great.
Brilliant, yeah.
My share bonus, thanks you.
So we're going to be talking to Chris Birch about the new venture that they're doing with Airfix, which is a subject that's quite close to my heart because that's how I started wargaming, with my beloved plastic Airfix models back when I were a lad. So I found that quite intriguing. So looking forward to talking to Chris all about the new Airfix wargaming. So that's what we've got in store. So what we'll do, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be chatting about what we've been getting up to.
The eagles have gone. Britain lies defenseless in a cruel world. Since the birth of our Lord, it has been 456 years. What sins have we committed to bring this punishment to Britain? I speak, of course, of the Saxons. They came as allies, but now they seek conquest. The lands of the Britons lie ravaged before them. Blood runs red in our island. We need a leader to stand against them. We need a man to bring together the Britons in common cause. We seek a Dux Britanniarum.
Right, that's enough of that. Dux Britanniarum from Two Fat Lardies. They really are very good.
What have we been playing? What have we been buying? We might even have painted something. The Meeples and Miniatures crew reveal all. So let's have a chat about what we've been up to.
Your turn. I started last time.
Oh, is it my turn this time? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's your turn.
My turn.
Oh no, hang on. Last time you went first, he was there for about 25 minutes, telling us about how he painted a panther.
Pixel by pixel.
Yeah. And then after I put that colour on, I wasn't really happy with that colour. So what I did was I used another colour.
I hate to tell you that, but that's actually a better impersonation of Henry than it is of Neil.
It is, sorry, Henry. But that's because I can't do Brummy. Go on, Neil. You can go first.
Rumph.
Podcast co-host.
I don't know.
New job.
About that Mike and Mike podcast, obviously. I think we might be needing it.
I don't know, trust a Welshman to try Brummy. That's terrible. Anyway. So, what have I been doing? Well, other than being chained to a desk editing like crazy, because as people may have noticed, we've been recording an awful lot of content recently. And yeah, with that and with the view from the veranda and everything, there's been it does seem that we've been doing a lot of editing. However, I took the day off week last Saturday. Terrible. I got so much flack for it on Twitter for it as well. Yeah, how dare you leave your laptop and go away and play games? Yes, but I actually went to the Strongest World Championship in Chalgrove, in Oxfordshire.
How did that go for you, Neil?
How did that go for me?
First of all, how many games did you play?
I can see where I can see where this is going.
I'm just asking some general questions.
Some general questions. Well, okay. So it was in Chalgrove in Oxfordshire. There were 14 people involved, and we did reckon it officially classed as a world championship, since we had 3 different nationalities there. We had 12 Englishmen. We had a Welshman. Because the Welsh contingent was sadly lacking. Apparently, loads of the promised Welsh contingent dropped out at the last minute, including your mate Mark. So I didn't get to meet him after all.
Yes, he wasn't very well, unfortunately.
So I got to, but I got to meet Ross, who is a listener. So hello, Ross. Didn't get to play Ross, but got to meet him, and we also had a Belgian.
Kurt.
Indeed. So it was truly international. And so, right. So I was playing an early Imperial Rome army, which I borrowed off Simon Miller. So Simon was down there for the day and what have you. So yes, playing a very, very nicely painted early Imperial Roman army. I tried sneaking out the door with it at the end of the day, but Simon caught me. I thought it's like, it's in this box. You won't miss this box, will you, if I just kind of surreptitiously put it in my car? But no, he caught me on the way out. Never mind. It was a lovely army. Hopefully you've seen some of the pictures I posted up on the blog just after. Got some very nice models in it. Painted primarily by Simon himself and David Imrie, I believe. It was nice. Really, really.
Mr.
Nice.
Emery's very good at putting on the slap, isn't he?
Just a tad.
Yeah.
Just a tad. So anyway, we had, so I was playing early Imperial Romans, and indeed I played 3 games.
And did you win any?
Did I win any? Well, victory and winning is such a harsh term.
Is this a long-winded way of saying no?
Well, I may have lost more games than I won.
Are you going to blame the army? Because you've been blaming my Germans for the last year.
Of course he is.
Because you're appalling run at chain of command.
Well, it has to be fair. One of the issues, I mean, why Simon chose 2 camps as opposed to just the one? Although, to be fair, having said that, he did email me and say, I've chosen this army, let me know if you want to change anything. And me being organised, I didn't really kind of get back to him. So I ended up in a situation where I had 2 camps as opposed to 1 camp. And it might have been useful having a unit instead of the second camp. Because, well, I mean, if nothing else, all 3 games were quite tight. I think the first one suffered from the fact that we had early Imperial Rome versus Vikings. Now, not wishing to sound too harsh, but it was an open competition, so you could play a force from any of the scenario, from any of the force books. So we had several Roman armies, actually from various centuries. Second game I ended up playing a fellow early Imperial Roman army, and the third game I ended up playing a late Roman army. And, yeah, the 2 fights against the 2 Roman armies were much tighter, and the only reason I lost the second game was that I foolishly let a unit into my battlefield, and he sacked my camp on the last turn. So
the bounder.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, that'll teach me. But there were also forces such as there was some Teutonic Knights and some later Persians and a few other bits and pieces. So I must admit, I would probably look at, if I was running one, to kind of think, well, maybe stick to one period. I don't know. Basically the question is how balanced are the armies between periods?
They can't be as bad as WAB.
That's the only question mark I had. I'd have expected my Romans to acquit themselves better against Vikings than what they did.
Yeah, but you got completely different fighting styles. This is always a problem with ancient games which go go across a large period of time. Is, armies evolve to fight specific subsets of armies. So when you chuck in a completely different period of time, you can't have them balanced. There's just no way, because the tactics and the way that the armies work were completely different.
Indeed. So that is my one reservation. Other than that, had a great day. Had 3 great games. Met a load of really nice blokes, and it was a day's gaming. Can't complain at all. Had a really good day. Got to a game, and then on the back of turning up to Mr. Luff's and turning around and saying, because obviously if you've heard 165, we were giving Dave a bit of a hard time about the fact they're still waiting to paint his glider.
Are we still waiting for him to paint his glider?
No, he's done it.
Well, he hasn't finished it yet. It's close.
Oh, right.
We had a hobby night last week. We decided rather than gaming something, I'll try and get it, as to quote a phrase, the bloody glider finished. So we ended up having a hobby night. So he started to paint his glider, and I was doing, carrying on with with my Germans. And so it was quite instructive. I think we actually got to the point where he's done the basics. And we were looking up we were basically at the point where we were kind of thinking, okay, what we now need to do the next bit. And we were researching whether or not gliders at Arnhem still had invasion stripes. Because we were wondering whether, looking at the fact that he's only got one glider, and we're definitely using it for D-Day, because that's what we're playing. But he was thinking, well, can I use it for Arnhem as well? And it's wondering whether gliders at Arnhem still had invasion stripes or not. And it was just a good point. It was just a good point of the evening to leave it. So hopefully, well, as we're recording this tomorrow, we'll get to finish it, which means that we'll be back playing Chain of Command in a couple of weeks. Which you cannot, but I am so looking forward to. It isn't true. Bit of gaming done. Not a huge amount of painting. A bit, and hopefully onto my next few bits and pieces. By the time this comes out. Oh, by the way, just to let you know, as far as that competition was concerned, I came 10th. I lost all 3 games and didn't come last, which has got to be some form of victory. Or, well, of the Pyrrhic variety, shall we say. So that's what I've been doing. As I say, bit of gaming, bit of painting, lots of editing.
Good man. Who's next?
You are.
Oh, balls. Right. After Mr. Whitaker's,
sorry. One thing. One other
there's
thing.
more, is there?
There's one other thing. Actually, it's kind of pleasing to you. Yes, and having arguments on Twitter about what forces we need for shot practice too.
Was it an argument? It's just a counter, Neil.
He was coming out with all the quotes that. Once again, it was like, oh, well, why can't we play 6-mil? Yes.
It's only a counter.
I must admit.
It'll be fine.
Yeah. I was thinking, oh, you know, do we want to do this? Do I want to do shot practice 2 in 28mm? Do I really want to paint that number of Perry boxes? I mean, I'm kind of preempting what Mr. Hobbs has been doing. But do I really want to do that?
Have you looked at the Perry's ACW box, Battle in the Box set?
I've looked at it.
Right, it's 85 quid in Firestorm. You can get 2 sharp practice armies out of that box set.
But what if I don't play ACW?
Well, it's time you did. It's nice and easy to paint. You know, you paint one side blue and the other side grey, you're sorted. None of this fancy ass Napoleonic strappings and, you know, things. I'm looking at it and I don't do 80W. I'm just thinking that's a good deal. 85 quid and there's like 150 odd infantry, 12 cavalry, 4 guns, a farmhouse, fencing.
Yeah, it's very tempting, isn't it?
And I bought something today, and Mike's probably bought that coastal defence. So it's your turn.
Well, I must admit, I was casting because I was thinking, well, okay, he does shot practice work in 15mm as well as it does in 28, because obviously myself and Mr. Hobbs played shot practice 2, or at least the first public playtest of shot practice 2 at Hereward, and it's a very nice game.
Well, why shouldn't it?
Yeah, I reckon it will.
Well, I mean, this is one of those questions that puzzles me every time it comes up. Unless your ground scale actually exceeds your figure scale, what's the problem?
Yeah. Because I'm just considering the fact that, you know, obviously 28mm, probably the ground scale's for shortened. So in the same way, so I'm thinking ground scale wise, does it work similar to the way Chain of Command does, for example, which actually you got 1-to-1 ground scale in 15mm? If that was the case, I was looking at AB figures. They're very nice.
Sorry, I can tell you for free that Shot Practice 1 is lovely in 15mm.
I can't see it being a problem.
Because my friend Tim Duckworth, who's a regular on the Lardies list, introduced me to Shot Practice 1 in 15mm. He also plays ducks in 15mm.
Well, the thing is, most people base their 28mm figures on pennies for sharp practice. So you're essentially doing the same thing.
Mm. So I'm considering doing shot practice in 15mm, and I was looking at AB figures because basically people went kind of, well, yeah, Essex are all right and these are all right, but
AB are lovely.
AB basically they're a little bit more expensive, but they're nice.
Mm.
They are very nice.
And New Line as well. Have a look at them. They're 20mm, but they're small 20mm. So they're about a 15mm, but say about an 18mm size.
Oh right, so they
And
fit
actually,
in with the ABs because the ABs are 18s, aren't they?
Yeah, and there is of course another source. Napoleon at War.
Oh yes,
They're 18s.
Yeah,
and they're dirt cheap to come by at the moment.
Yeah, because everybody's selling them off, aren't they?
Yeah.
Ooh. So there you go. That was it.
Yeah, the thing is, because they do them in blisters now as well, don't they? They do a regiment in a blister. Very nice.
And that
certainly do.
And that would be useful because shot practice, because you need 40, 50 figures or something, don't you?
If you want, Neil, I can send you a few samples. Cause I've got some Man of War figures here, or Napoleon at War, and I've got some spare New Line. I can send you a couple of figures, paint them up, see if you like them.
He's asking me to paint again, folks.
What's worse, I'm asking you to paint Napoleonics.
Oh no! So how's the painting of your Napoleonics gone? Oh yeah, I interrupted you, Mr. Hobbs. How's your painting gone?
Yeah. So what have I been up to? I decided because I'm jumping back into 1812. My after we chatted about Sales of Glory, that sort of put a little spark in the back of my head about doing 1812.
Oh.
And then we did the play tests. So the game at Hereward as well, and I just thought, sharp practice fits in quite nicely. I might just do a couple of little forces because I had some figures already done, and I was going to send them all away. And then I thought, I really fancy painting some Napoleonic figures. I must have been drunk. So,
how long did this fad last?
It's actually still going on. I painted up 24 Canadian militia, which are dressed in sort of British infantry uniforms anyway, but they had green jackets because they didn't have much proper cloth out, for the militia. So I've done them. I didn't want to do the straps. I thought, I hate painting straps, but I've sussed it now, so I'm happy. So I've now.
So how have you sussed it?
Well, I can never get them right by doing the right. So what I've done is a dark grey. Highlight once, give it a black wash, and then highlight in white, and it comes up lovely. Because the last highlight of white, you literally just dot it on a few shades, and it just picks up the shade, picks up the straps, and it's really easy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and because the black just goes into all the gaps, so where they're, because you got a green or a red cloth underneath it, which I usually paint over by mistake, it just puts a shadow into it, and it tricks the eye. So I'm quite happy with that. So I'm painting War of 1812 figures. I've got some Americans. I've been making Sabo bases, and war bases. War bases are great. I've never really used them before, but what a lovely company.
They are fantastic. Hello, Martin.
Yeah. Oh, Martin, if you're listening to this, secretly I love you. Because they just do everything, and they're helpful, and they deliver quickly. Fantastic film. So I've made loads of Sabo bases up. I dug up my old Grand Manor fort, which I got ages ago and never finished. So I'm painting that up.
Oh yeah, I saw the Twitter comment about that when Rich saw how much it was.
Yes.
Yes, because Grand Manor 28mm buildings are really nice, but they're not particularly cheap.
That's the understatement of the year.
Yeah, I was quite lucky because I got mine through Grip and Beast for doing some work for them, so I didn't have to pay full price.
But I've never yet seen a Grand Manor building that hasn't caused me to go, ooh, tap, search, holy bleep, how much?
Yeah, I did price up because they do a fantastic range of Spanish buildings, which I was at one point considering purchasing when I had my 40mm collection of HRBS figures, and priced it all up, and it came back to somewhere around about 350 quid. I'm thinking.
I refer the honourable gentleman to the pictures in the back of the Black Powder rulebook. That Spanish town in the Napoleonic scenario, which I think is all Grand Manor.
Yeah.
And I just looked at it and went, that might have been the point where you realise that the Perrys actually did quite well out of wargaming.
Yeah. Especially if they got it painted already.
Yeah.
So,
the other one that scared the pants off me is, if you remember the guy who did Witchfinder General.
Oh, yeah.
His demo table was a 4x4 English Civil War town, and I'm pretty sure it was all Grand Manor.
Ooh. Yeah, that'd be nice. Yeah, so other than that, I actually did these militia using an old box of Perrys I found in the back of my cupboard. So I thought, this is great. I don't have to buy any more figures.
Hang on a minute. Yeah.
And that lasted about 2 days, and I then bought a load more Perry's plastics, and I've ordered some Brigade Games over in the States, and they're another good company. They deliver really quickly, and their War of 1812 stuff is sculpted by Hicksy, by Paul Hicks.
Oh, crikey!
Yeah,
he gets everywhere.
The boy's gone global. As soon as I saw an 8 said that they're Hicksy, and I looked at them again, and oh god, they are. And I was at that fight, I'll have a few packs. So they're on the way. So lots of painting, lots of buying stuff. Not much gaming other than carrying on the free jumper play testing for Sam, which I can't talk about. It's very nice.
Cool.
Done. Sorry, I waffled again.
It's no more than the interrupting waffling that I keep doing.
Say nothing.
Yeah.
Mr. Whitaker, okay, go on, Mr. Whitaker.
Had a couple of interesting games down the club. We've been play testing a demo game for the East Anglia Model Show. Some of you may remember that if you went to Hereward, we had Peterborough Scale Model Society.
Oh, yeah.
We have a sort of gentlemanly reciprocal arrangement with them. We give them space at our show. They give us a demo game at their show. So Graham from our club is doing a little bit of 15mm Napoleonics with a set of fairly easy rules, which seem to borrow quite heavily from DBA, based on the Battle of Mogilev.
I was going to say, when you say a little bit, I saw the pictures. It's a huge battle.
No, it wasn't that big. They were 15 mils.
On
a 6x4.
Is that all it was?
Yeah.
Wow, it looked bigger than I thought. It was like an 8x6.
No, it's 15 mil and a 6x4. There are pictures on Twitter. Basically, it's the Russians and the French attempting to have a long discussion over a couple of crossings over a tributary of the River Dnieper. It's quite fun. It was good fun. At the point we wrapped up, the Russians had just managed to get across one of the river crossings, and I was in the process of bringing up some French columns to try and drive them out again. Apparently, historically, that little village changed hands about 3 times in the course of the day, so I was cautiously optimistic.
Because you had that model of the Russian church.
Yeah, which I promised somebody I would actually find out who makes that. I haven't had time to get hold of Graham yet, but it's a lovely little model.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, and I said that's all 15 mil. It doesn't look it, but it is.
Nice.
And the other game we played down the club is Andy Hawes and I finally got to play a game of Dux Brit after 2 years.
Huzzah!
Huzzah! So yes, the adventures of Elfric and his merry band of Saxon thugs continues apace. I had forgotten what a truly awesome game it is. It may have been the first time we played in 2 years, but I think we only forgot 2 rules that mattered and they weren't important. And it was a really, really good game. It continues to have superb replay value in that because of the random setup rules and the random terrain layout rules, no 2 scenarios are the same, even if you roll the same scenario from the book. So, for example, you can play 2 consecutive raids on a farm, and the terrain will look completely different. The farm will probably be in this different place. The Saxons will probably come on a different table edge relative to the farm, and it'll be a whole different tactical challenge. And full marks to Rich for that. It's still, I think, one of his best rule sets.
I haven't played it a lot. I think I've had one game of Duxbit, which I massively enjoyed, and I do have a couple of armies from when Westwind were having a sale, and so I picked up a British army and a Saxon army.
Which leads to the dangerous question: have you painted either of them yet?
Don't be daft, for goodness' sake! What sort of talk is that?
Well, you know, with your new squeaky clean half-an-hour painting a night kind of way, you could have them done by 2019.
I say, what, the half-an-hour painting a night that I haven't managed for the last 2 weeks? I have kind of been fading a bit on that because, other distractions. However, I'm hoping to have a bit of a hobby binge over this weekend because my other half is going away for the weekend, so I'm hoping that unless she leaves me a huge list of jobs to do, I'm going to get a chance.
She's your other half. She will.
Yes. Well, you know.
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, I was hoping to get once we get this thing edited, I might get 10 minutes to do a bit of painting. You never know.
So, other than that, hobby-wise, I dug out my Saxons and sorted them out.
Huzzah.
So technically, I did a bit of gluing. And I repurposed I flocked a couple of movement trays, which is probably more hobby work than I've done in God knows how long. And buying and selling, I sold 4 assorted boxes of 28mm Greeks, which I'm never going to paint. And I also shifted about a dozen Lord of the Rings Riders of Rohan, which, again, painted, unlikely to use again. I have commandeered a couple of them for Dux Britanniarum hero figures, but Ruben wanted the rest, so I now have 60 quid's worth of credit with PE2 collectibles for that lot, burning a hole in my pocket.
So, he didn't pay you real cash for them then?
I thought it was probably wiser not to.
It's better than cash.
It's better than cash. So I'm currently eyeing a lot of the MDF scenery that Sarissa do for Warlord and debating what I want. And I bought, because Al at our club was doing a clear out, 7 packs of Skytrax naval, British and German ships. World War II.
Ooh.
Mostly because it's something I've always wanted to do at some point, and it was too good an opportunity to pass up. So I've got most of the Sink the Bismarck fleets and the rest of the Atlantic fleets and all the fun Germans for the Channel Dash and things. So at some point I might try and find a set of rules for World War II naval that don't go down to the last river on the last destroyer in the back of the flotilla. Suggestions from listeners welcome.
Yeah, good luck with that one.
And sadly, I'm not going to HateCon this weekend, which I was rather hoping to do, but unfortunately, I appear to be being instructed to go off to Deeping Tennis Club and wield a camera for my son's GCSE sports video. So, sorry, folks. It would have been nice to have made it there.
Is it wise to have you video when you can't see anything?
Perfectly all right. It can't be any worse than having the wife do it.
Ooh.
By her own admission, she is not arty.
And coming up, I mean, this is coming out on the 1st of March. So if people are listening and fancy bumping into us, I think myself and Mr. Whitaker are both going to be at Hammerhead, indeed. Hammerhead at Newark Showground on Saturday, the 5th of March.
That's right. I will mostly be hanging around our Cold War diving game.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I heard you. Yes, you were saying playing with aquarium plants and stuff.
Graham is currently endowing with the title Flippers of Doom or something like that.
Okay.
But yes, look out for divers on telescopic aerials, aquarium plants, and the side of a rather large Russian warship. You knew there was going to be a silly scenery build in here, didn't you?
Indeed. Yes, and I'll just basically be wandering around and
loitering with intent.
Something like that. something like that. So if people fancy catching up and saying hello and
don't look for the Meeples shirts because I still don't have one.
I might be wearing mine for a change, and obviously I'll be going to have a word with our favourite East Anglian and seeing if his wife's made me any more cake. Because it's got to be close to me having another birthday.
This is true, and Henry will be there as well.
Henry will be there as well, indeed. So Henry Hyde's going to be there as well with some of the gang from Warner's. So yes, it's if you spot us, come along and say hi.
Yep.
Okay, so so that's about us done for what we've been up to, and so we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll get on with some hobby news, shall we? Announcements, new releases, Kickstarters. What's caught our eye? It's time to catch up with the Meeples and Miniatures hobby news. Well, we kick off the hobby news with a bit of sad news, actually. I must admit I missed it at the time. Not quite sure why, but I missed it at the time. But 9th of February, Wayne England died. Which I thought, came as a bit of a shock. I only spotted it because Jake Thornton made reference to it at the point where Age of Tyrants Kickstarter finished. And he made reference to the fact that Wayne had died. Now, Wayne was one of the concept artists on the Age of Tyrants Kickstarter. But I know Wayne, or know of Wayne's work. I mean, I don't know him personally, I've never met him, but he was the guy that really inspired me to get into dwarves. I mean, I've been playing role-playing dwarves before, but seeing his medieval dwarven army that he put out in, I think it was White Dwarf 135, I think it was when they first appeared. These dwarves in blue and white quartered medieval livery. Absolutely brilliant, massively inspired, and just inspired me to and really started my love affair with dwarves. It all brought it to a whole new level because it was like, medieval figures and dwarves. What could be better? And so sadly he passed away. We'll offer condolences to his family and friends. Sad times.
It is sad.
I hadn't realised until it cropped up that he's responsible for quite a lot of very iconic art in some of the D&D, but earlier D&D books as well.
And also huge amounts of stuff for Magic the Gathering.
Which I don't play, but yeah. Once you know what his style is, you can see where which Magic cards clearly have his hand on them.
He was one of these artists that you don't really sort of know his name, but like you say,
you knew his style.
You knew his style, and he was everywhere.
Yeah.
So he wasn't one of these people who was pushing his name out all the time.
Yeah.
Looking at me, he was just getting on, doing some fantastic work.
It's not a bad epitaph, is it?
No. It's very sad.
No, things like that iconic drawing of the Chaos Terminator captain, the headshot of the Chaos Terminator captain that appeared on I think it was a White Dwarf cover, and stuff like that. Yeah, there's just it's so much stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now. In fact, that is a superb picture.
Yeah, huge portfolio of work. Yeah. Very talented bloke. Huge loss.
Yeah.
Amen.
And talking about huge losses, another piece of news that came out of left field: Pig Iron are closing down.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, that was my comment. in fact, my blog had that. Pig Iron closing down.
The feeding frenzy on their closing down sale has been pretty awesome.
Say that again.
If you wanted anything, sorry, it's too late.
It's all gone. Yeah,
completely.
And it all went within like 48 hours.
Yeah, they were always one of those companies that I always kept looking at stuff, going, "Oh, it's really nice. I could do something with that. I must get some of that." I never did. And
I picked up their the tanks, the main battle tank, the tank with the alternate turret with the chain gun on it, and their APC. When they first came out, right at the start, I picked it all within the first month. I thought, and they were cracking. They're really nice kits, really big and chunky. They're kind of, and to be honest, at the time, I bought them for using with Copplestone's Neo-Soviets, because they're big solid square tanks, and they kind of look like something that would be around for something that the Russians would build if they were still going at the time. So that's why I first picked them up from, and then. Yeah, you looked at. I had the heavy infantry on my shopping list. Their colony militia, which, if anybody would have been collecting an Imperial Guard army, for example, they were absolutely ideal for an Imperial Guard army. And then more recently, they brought out some system troopers. And they're really, really nice figures, and it was always a case of, right, okay, I'll get some of them eventually. And I came within a gnat's whisker of buying some last year. I actually got to a point because I was selling stuff off, and I went, right, okay, I'm going to buy some, I'm going to buy a couple of platoons. I'll buy a platoon of heavy infantry, and I'll buy a platoon of militia. And went on the website, and the infantry packs for both of them were out of stock. I emailed them and said, when are they coming back in? He said, it'll be a few weeks. Of course, they came back in a few weeks, and by that time, one thing and another.
You'd spent the money on something else.
Yes, the money had gone on something else. I think, I think it was like, MOT, tyres for the car or something stupid. Not spending money on models. What else are we coming to? And so I thought, oh well. It'll go on my shopping list for this year. This year, I promise myself I will at least buy a platoon of militia, of the colony militia. So, even looking at something like doing, Chain of Command, maybe even looking at a sci-fi Chain of Command or something. Or Dead Zone or something like that. Too late, she cried.
Indeedy.
Well, we can only hope that the ranges get picked up by someone. I'm pretty sure one of the firms will pick them up.
Warlord, probably.
There is a thread on TMP on the news, and there was a comment posted from them saying, talks are going well.
Yeah.
So I would really, really hope that someone picks up the Masters because
me too,
because they are brilliant.
They're lovely. I really fancy some of those.
Well, in my opinion, they're some of the best sci-fi troops out in 28 go around. They are some of the iconic ranges. I mean, for me, you look at things like Copplestone's Assault Troopers and his Neo-Soviets, and as two iconic ranges. And then you got, as I say, I think these rank up there with them. If you're looking, especially if you're looking at hard sci-fi, and they do a huge range of different bits and pieces, loads of different heads and all sorts. They're just all fantastic stuff. So I really, really hope that they're not gone for good.
Moving on. Those chaps at Plastic Soldier Company have been busy again. Not only have we got a 15mm British Paras boxed set, which looks pretty much like their other 15mm figures box set, a gross of figures, that's 144 in new money, the usual 3 2-inch mortar teams, 3 PAT teams. Fundamentally, it's a full company with HQ. Due out
now
this week. As ever is. By the time you listen to this podcast, they'll be out. They've also announced Battle Group Wachte am Rhein. Aren't you glad you left me to pronounce that?
Yep.
Indeed.
Which is the Battle Group Battle of the Bulge supplement, which is coming out at Salute.
Yes. It's all for pre-order. Softback.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
Also,
it's going to be a much smaller one because you need to have the Battle Group Overlord book and the main rules.
Which makes a reasonable amount of sense, let's face it.
Yeah. And I believe it's also going to be a limited print run.
Oh, I'll be getting that then.
So it's as in it's I think it's going on sale both. Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe it's going on sale both as a plastic, both as a softback and also as a PDF. But once the softback's gone, it will only be available as a PDF.
That's fair enough.
£12. with army lists scenarios. Got to be worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
If the Battle of the Bulge is your bag, then definitely worth getting.
Well, it's late war, Western Front.
It's a bit later war than most people seem to do.
True.
To be fair, I mean, let's face it, most people do Normandy. And as you get further down into Germany, odd, interesting things start popping up that aren't in the Normandy force lists, and yeah, it'll be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting away from World War II. Now, I'm going to probably mispronounce this. Antediluvian? Antediluvian. Oh, let's start that again.
It means before the flood.
Yes. I've learned something today. But anyway, them, Antediluvian Miniatures, who I've never heard of before. And I just saw a post about them, and they do a whole range of Lost Worlds miniatures. And they're fab. They're just absolutely fab. If you ever watched the Doug McClure movies of, it's
or
that.
even there was a recent US TV series. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah. I can't remember the name of it either.
But things like The Land That Time Forgot and the Warlords of Atlantis and stuff like that.
Pretty much, yeah. It's so you got like big stumpy dinosaur things and weird beasts, plus Victorian explorers and natives and weird, more like, figures. It's just.
I mean, I can see uses for this all over the shop.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got if you want to produce a slightly whacked out themed Kings of War army, say, they've got pteranodons. So if you want a different kind of warlord on flying monster, they've got some really nice looking pteranodons.
I'm thinking 7TV, perfect for that.
Oh yeah!
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah. So yeah, go and have a look at those. We'll put the show notes up. Don't ask me to pronounce it again.
Oh, those. I'm just looking. There are some lovely sculpts there.
Aren't they?
There's some really, really nice sculpts. Buy these, people.
I'm not looking. I'm not looking. No, don't make me.
Yeah, I looked and thought, how do I not know about these people? They're fantastic.
Quick, Neil, on to something else before you spend money.
Indeed.
Look at the Explorer, Neil. Go on, look at him.
Stop it! Just something quick to mention. You may remember a couple of shows ago we talked about a Kickstarter from Army's Army, 15mm Cold War, Brits and Russian VDV. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in conjunction with that, there was a it's hopefully the first of several scenario books was released by a guy called Jason Visa, or Visa. He actually sent me a copy of this to review. Hopefully that should be appearing in the next Miniature War Games, actually. And we'll talk about, I'll just mention it briefly, but I'm sure we can talk about it on the blog and what have you. So, obviously, one of the big things around at the moment is Team Yankee. And everybody talks about, if you talk about World War III, everybody talks about the war in Germany. Okay, so Russians against Americans and British in Germany. However, Red Star White Lights is the first of hopefully a series of scenario books, and this is 12 scenarios at kind of platoon-ish level. Okay, some are slightly smaller, some are slightly larger, with maybe a couple of vehicles. Aimed primarily for use with 15mm, and it is rules independent, although the force lists have been put together for use with something like Force on Force, for example. Okay, so if you've seen the Cold War Gone Hot scenario book from Force on Force, similar sort of thing. Except all these are based in Scandinavia. Okay, so it's the Russians invading, basically you're looking at Finland, Finland, Sweden, primarily. So there's loads of rules in there for fighting in cold weather and the effects of things like winter night and winter day, and fighting in massive sub-zero temperatures and what effect that may have on forces. Some really nice little scenarios. So some are right down to a couple of squads aside, right up until platoon plus with armoured support or what have you. Great little book. Only available. It's available in PDF. $6.99, and it's basically really a good read. Really well worth a look. So it was Red Star, White Lights by Jason Visa. Hopefully the first of what will be a whole series of books looking at alternate conflicts in a potential World War III, but not based in Western Germany.
Different.
Some really nice. I mean, and loads of different little things. You got like raids on radar You got raids on like radar stations and stuff. You've got a great one where you're effectively trying. The Russians are trying to kidnap a member of the Swedish royal family. Stuff like this. Basically trying to ambush them on a road and stuff. And then there's they were meeting up with a US battle group and all sorts of little bits and pieces, loads of different little fun scenarios, and you don't need a huge figure count, and it's just something a bit different. Really cool.
Okay, moving on to Kickstarters. Remember the Shield Maidens vs. Orcs Kickstarter?
Oh, what you mean, the one we're going to talk about, and then they cancelled it?
It's back!
Oh, right, okay.
Only this time it's back as just the Shield Maidens Kickstarter. As far as I can tell, they have gone away and done their maths properly, picked up their toys back out of the pram, and had a bit of a rethink, and restarted it. It's got, by the time you get to this podcast, it's probably only going to have 2 or 3 days left to go, in that it finishes on March the 3rd. They're already, they have a $30,000 goal, and they're past 46,000 already. Basically, there are a number of pledge levels. They're doing basically female warrior miniatures, fantasy in plastic. They're clearly from the test renders. They're 3D sculpted, which does seem to be the way plastics happen most of the time these days. They're quite dramatic looking. Bare midriffs optional, apparently. They're going to be providing some alternate front torsos that don't have bare midriffs, which will no doubt please Annie. And a lot of nice stretch goals. There's some ice bear cavalry, which look armoured bears, which look particularly pretty.
Ooh, you mean like armoured bears as in, like, that Golden Compass sort of thing?
Took the words right out of my mouth, mate. They look almost exactly like concept art for Golden Compass.
Oh, cool.
And they are lovely. And they've got various pledge levels depending on how many boxes of what you want. There's a few extras from the Orcs range as stretch goals, but they're basically mostly doing the Shield Maidens for now. Look like they'd make a very nice Kingdoms of Men army for Kings of War.
Can I just go on record and say that I really don't like them?
Go ahead.
I really don't like them. I think they're rubbish. Yeah, it's just, I look at them, I think, oh look, short skirts, crop tops, long flowing hair. They look like a bunch of cheerleaders who've draped themselves with a bit of chainmail and gone to a fancy dress party.
Oh, you don't mince your words, do you?
So I just, yeah, and I know they're fantasy, and there's people will say, oh, well, they're fantasy, so it's okay. But no, you wouldn't see them in a shield wall. You see them floating behind the shield wall, waving their pom-poms going, go on, boys, go on, boys. But no, I just don't get the concept at all.
Yeah, okay.
Lazy stuff. So that's just...
To each their own, I think.
Although the polar bears are lovely. I've got to say.
The bears are very nice, actually. I really do like the bears.
Can you buy the polar bear separately?
Yeah, I think you can do a minimal level pledge and then get them as a stretch goal. Or an add-on.
All right, so you can get the bear separately and then put whatever riders you like on them.
I assume so.
Yeah.
Ooh, and are the bears plastic?
Don't know.
Resin, I think.
I think they're resin.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So just weird. I don't like the Shield Maidens, but I like the other stuff they've done. And the orcs, the pictures of the orcs look quite nice as well.
So in other words, what you're saying is that they chose the wrong range to go with.
Probably not, because they'll probably make a lot more money from the
cheerleaders.
Yeah, the cheerleaders. See, I've now put that into your head, haven't I?
Yeah. Yes.
Next.
I think we should move on.
I think we should.
Right. Okay, next one. Crooked Dice, who we do like, released some new figures.
Sorry, you have to read that again. Oh,
yeah.
Having safely established that you can show your face in Firestorm games again with that last comment, carry on, do.
Yeah. Yes. So, Crooked Dice released some new figures. I think it was last month they released four heroes. One of them looks like a certain alien from the 70s, Nanu. But coming up, they've got some of their future freedom fighters, which I can't say, and they just look very, very nice.
Oh, were these the ones that somebody tweeted them? Was it today or yesterday?
Yeah.
Oh, they're gorgeous.
Yeah. Not at all like the sort of figures that you would have seen in the last episode of Blake 7. No, not at all. No, not at all. Not even close.
Talking of which, how is your Blake 7 gaming game?
I've finished one side. I painted up all of my
heads,
all my Federation troops. They're all done. But I got distracted with 1812.
Indeed.
Yeah.
So Crooked Dice are at it again then.
Yep.
Mind you, didn't they say they were going to do shouldn't we be close to seeing the Freedom Fighters program guide released?
Yeah. Yeah, that should be up soon.
Mm. So, ooh, yes, I'm very tempted.
Mm.
Mm. Yeah, because you never guess what I've been catching up with on a certain well-known streaming website where people post their own videos. UFO.
What, from the 60s?
Oh my Gideon!
Because someone's put the entire series on.
No.
I was listening to because I'm a huge fan of the Kermode and Mayo, the Kermode and Mayo podcast, and I don't know quite how they managed it, but they ended up they started talking about the UFO toys and the fact of why was the dinky toy interceptor green. And so Mark Kermode was going on about why on earth was the toy interceptor green? Because it's white in the series, okay. But the dinky toy was green. Now I don't know about you, but I had a dinky toy UFO interceptor, and yes, it was green. Anyway, on 2 or 3 episodes ago on the podcast, they end up with what's his name? It's Jerry Anderson's son, who now runs 21st Century Productions, and they actually got him in the studio to talk about why the UFO interceptor was green and the original Eagle model from Space 99, that was also green, and why was it? And as a result of that, I ended up...
let me guess, because Corgi bought a job lot of paint to do Thunderbird 2 and didn't know what to do with it.
Well, do you realise Thunderbird 2 was originally blue when Corgi produced the toy for it?
Oh, Corgi, you're just colourblind then.
Yeah, was it something Corgi was just colourblind?
Apparently, despite the fact that Thunderbird 2 is green, originally they employed a psychologist or something who basically turned around and went, no, you can't have a green toy. People will not buy green toys, and therefore, when they produced the original toy for Thunderbird 2, it was blue. However, by the time they got to UFO, the thinking had changed completely, and they had a new guy in who was saying, "Oh, yeah, it's got to be green."
So everything is green, including the things that shouldn't have been.
Because people won't buy a white toy, despite the fact that the UFO interceptor was white and the Eagle's white, but they were, and yes, they were the same shade of green because yes, they bought a whole bunch of green to do, But it was just brilliant in the fact that it's really funny listening to this conversation going on. And in the meantime, there's Mark Kermo geeking out with the fact that he's talking to Jerry Anderson's lad. Oh, it's really funny. But on the back of that, I've ended up talking about 70s TV series, sci-fi series. I'm currently watching UFO.
So if you're listening, 7TV,
I'd forgotten. I mean, I only caught I was only allowed at the time. I'd forgotten how bleak that series is.
Oh gosh, wasn't it? There was also came out at the same time. There were a set of bubblegum cards. Do you remember those? Basically, they were individual pictures of various things from the series. Yes. I think it was 36. And if you turn them all over, they made a single big picture, and I completed that picture.
Oh, yes. Oh.
I don't know whatever happened to the cards, but I completed that picture. I was so chuffed.
Cool. Yes. Actually, I think you're right. I think it was late 60s, not early 70s. Because obviously early 70s ended up at Space 1999.
Yeah.
Because I didn't realise Space 1999. Space 1999 is earlier than I thought it was. I thought it was late 70s. It's actually kind of mid 70s. But there you go. But yeah, so that was just an aside with the Freedom Fighters, because obviously you can find the odd episode of Blake 7 on this particular website as well. Can you?
You can.
You can.
As well.
No, I still love the filming anecdotes from Blake 7, where they're trying to do something and they all of a sudden it's like they're trying to film a quiet bit and there's this noise coming from somewhere else. And of course, Blake 7, they're in a quarry, and there's this noise coming from from somewhere else. And they're like, look, we're trying to film here. Go, and they send somebody off.
It was Doctor Who, wasn't it?
It was Doctor Who who were filming round the corner in the same quarry. Because obviously, if people who watch the series will know that an awful lot of alien planets.
There is only one quarry. There is only one alien planet, and it's represented by a quarry in wherever.
Yes.
Quite close to Elstree, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and it was a case of Blake 7 and Doctor Who were filming on similar ends of the same quarry.
I think Blake 7 used to film in a nuclear power plant as well.
Yes, they did, didn't they? Yes.
I get that one past health and safety these days.
Kids these days. So, anyway, we digress.
We do digress completely. What that has exactly got to do with wargaming, other than the fact of futuristic freedom fighters?
We've had a real nostalgia trip this.
Oh gosh, haven't we?
Oh, too right. So I think on that note, we'll bring this edition of the Hobby News to a close, and we'll catch up. We'll take a break, and we've got a couple of interviews coming up for you. So first off, we're going to be talking to Carl Brown of Second Thunder, catching up with Carl all about Open Combat Kickstarter, and just at the point where it all starts arriving. Exciting stuff. And then we're going to be talking with Chris Birch from Modiphius Entertainment. Have you ever wondered what's going on in wargaming? We do too. So come with us as we go behind the hobby with the Meeples and Miniatures interview. We're very pleased to welcome back to the show we've just been thinking, it's the third time.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mr. Carl Brown. Hello, Carl.
Hi, hello. Thanks for having me back.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
It's good to have you back on, mate.
Yeah.
You managed to fight your way from behind a veritable shed load of boxes.
Yeah, literally, it could be a shed load, actually, if it wasn't for the fact that sheds are usually damp. Yeah, they would fill a shed. Yeah, we had delivery of the hardback, so yeah, all good.
Good stuff. Yeah, yes, in a piece of timing that was just, couldn't have been done better. Obviously, the Twitterverse went mad yesterday afternoon when Carl actually tweeted some pictures of Open Combat arriving at his house. And so he's currently speaking to us whilst interaction.
Yeah, it's yeah. I don't know if traction is appropriate. Maybe recovering from the shock, actually, of the terror that you have when opening something that's brand new. It's when you've produced something, you know it's signed off, you know you're happy with it, but when it comes to opening it, you've got there's a rush of terror that you then open the box to actually look at it.
But having done that,
it took me the whole day to come down.
Having done that, and I've done it for albums, it's that moment where you see that row of spines, all with your thing's name on it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in the box. Isn't that just awesome?
Yeah. Oh, it was one of those things. I had to let my wife open the first box because I just didn't dare. I just froze. I mean, I've worked in design for a long time, and I used to share an office with a guy, a PR professional, and the two of us came to an agreement that if it was our client, we opened the box, because neither of us ever wanted to open the box. Even though you'd gone through all the proofreading and all that kind of stuff, you were always terrified of actually seeing that final thing. And then you have the big sigh of relief when you've seen it. So it took me about 5 minutes to kind of look at it after my wife had been looking at it and someone else had been looking at it. And I thought, okay, I'll have a little look at the cover. And I gradually sort of allowed myself to flick through it. And then I was just like, wow, this is good.
So, I have to ask, how many typos have you found?
None at the moment.
Wow.
But that is because I've not been through it thoroughly since I got...
However, I know, certainly on albums I've produced, the first one, I can tell you where every single bit we missed in the mastering is.
I do take the proofreading of printers' proofs incredibly seriously. So there were 29 tweaks that I did when I got the proofs from the printers. And there were things that no one else would see either. There were things like double spaces that no one would see that I couldn't live with. So it's like little things like that. So I kind of was very thorough in the kind of pre-press stage. So there was 4 sets of eyes proofreading before it went to press. And then when it went to the printers and I get the proofs back from the printers, this is your last chance. I took 2 days to go back to them because I was making sure I was very thorough with it. So it's one of those things where, because you take it personally when it's your own, even more so than normal, if you like.
Right. Well, this is all lovely to catch up, but there might be some people listening to this thinking, what on earth are they talking about?
Yes.
And who is this bloke?
Yeah. So maybe we should go all the way back to the beginning and just explain, who is this Carl Brown bloke?
Yeah.
Okay, cue wibbly wobbly timey wimey effect.
I was just imagining that as well.
Yeah. So, what do you reckon, Carl? About a year ago?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it started in October 2014 when I released the digital edition of Open Combat.
Crikey, was it really that long ago?
Yeah, it's gone.
Of course, it was Derby World's.
Yeah, that's right. And I back then, I mean, I spoke to you. I can't remember when it was around about the release of that, but we had a chat then and introduced the system, if you like, and introduced the game, which is it's Open Combat's a skirmish game. It could arguably be called a micro skirmish game because you can play it on a 2x2, and unlike most games, you actually get to produce the profiles, if you like, your statistics of your guys. You can generate your own stats for anything that you want, so you can play with any figures in any setting that you like, pre-gunpowder setting, so it's historical fantasy. Back in October 2014, I actually released it as a digital edition of rules with the intention to take things slowly with digital releases and generate an income to then go into print eventually.
And then you had this mad idea of doing a Kickstarter.
Yeah, I was very reticent to do this. And it's something that, it's like Gav said to me the other night, actually, when I was speaking to him before it arrived. I wasn't even going to do this. My original plan was don't do a Kickstarter because it will be hard. It will be really hard to do essentially solo. And I kind of let it run for a little while with the digital release, and it was very successful. It's kind of, and the digital sales did continue. But having weighed up the odds of the benefits of a Kickstarter from a marketing perspective, purely as a marketing perspective, as much as anything, if you like, then it was worth taking a stab at. My initial plan was just to get the Open Combat as what existed back then, which was a 50-page PDF. So essentially turning it with a bit of extra content to a 60-page softback book. That's what the original intention of the Kickstarter was, with a view to, if it proves something that's interesting to people and has some sort of success in the following that the Kickstarter creates, then it could get that additional sort of upgrades to the quality of it, so hardback and decent print finishes and all the rest of it, and extra content, so additional scenarios. I thought, we might get to additional scenarios, and that was all I'd be thinking about. But as it was, what happened is it got to such a stage where I thought, well, actually, I will put a campaign or advancement system into the core book as well, because at the end of the day, originally I was going to plan to have that element as a supplement that came later. But while I was there, in for a penny, in for a pound kind of thing, let's get the book as good as it can be while I'm in the moment, if you like. Yeah. But obviously that had a knock-on effect to how long it would take to produce.
Yeah, and if you want to hear all the gory details in glorious stereo, or actually glorious mono, that's back in there's episode 136, which is the Carl and Gav show.
Dare I say it, we are going to do our own podcast at some point, but I'm not entirely sure whether we've got anything that can record that much data, to be honest. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah. It's all right. I'm used to it. I'm going to talk to you about. And then there's episode 141, which is when we actually talked about the Open Combat Kickstarter. So you can go back to 141, listen and now compare notes with what we're about to chat about in hindsight. Yeah. Okay, so that's 136 and 141.
Yeah.
Yes. When you were so happy and jolly, and I'm going to do a Kickstarter, it's going to be great. So, moving on.
After everything we've just discussed in the previous episode, which you won't have heard yet, do you think you overcommitted?
No. What I did do, and this is something where it's not so much an overcommitment, because I was very, very careful about that, having seen lots of the ever expanding Kickstarters that we do see running, where they're very ambitious with multitudes of add-ons of miniatures and things like that, which are, that's a whole different production line and things that gets involved there. With Open Combat, it was very controlled and contained, if you like. It was mainly, it's just going to be a book, and the only tweaks I'll do to that, if you like, was a dice set, which would be nice to have, but only if we can afford to do it. And, increasing the specifications of the book, if you like, the quality of the book. So I kept it well within something that I could manage on my own. The variable that was there, which had an impact on the delivery time, if you like, was including the campaign system within the core book, which wasn't part of the initial plan. And what caused the delays, if you like, was the fact that I was running it solo. So real life events can take a disproportionate knock-on effect when you're only on your own running it. Because obviously if there's health issues, or you have any issues within the family or something, if real life gets in the way when you're running it on your own, it has a very large impact on it. Whereas if you're a company which has got several members of various departments running on the production of a product, of a Kickstarter delivery, then if one of them drops down ill for a few weeks or something like that, it still continues, whereas there is a different knock-on effect as a solo. So I think if anyone was to consider it, running it solo, to build that in quite dramatically into their time, if you like, the downtime that will likely happen. Because the other thing is you're running yourself as hard as possible, and you do run out of steam, and you have to take a break. And I'm quite bad at burning the candle at both ends when I'm in on a deadline sort of thing, from working from within design industry. So when it was my own project, and knowing that you've got that responsibility to deliver for all these people that have backed you, there's a pressure on yourself. I mean, obviously this is the character thing, so it depends on the individuals that are running these things. But if you take it very, very personally and very seriously, that your responsibility, it's very easy to run yourself into the ground. And that has a knock-on effect to the speed you can work at, your productivity, if you like. So I think that was my biggest lesson I learned from it, was the building in time to slow down, if you like. Let yourself just relax a little bit while you're working on it, or build in time for the unknown. That's the element.
The Kickstarter was really successful.
Yeah, I mean, for what it was, yeah, absolutely.
Remind us just how well you did.
Well, it got. I mean, I was basing it on number of backers. That's what I kind of measure the success of a Kickstarter on.
Yeah,
and I had 545, I think, backers. I've not got the details in front of me. I should have really pulled them up.
544 backers, 11,885 quid.
Yeah,
sorry, it's my job for this show.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't open up any more windows in case I knock my machine over. So while we're recording. And what that funded was the book went from being a softback 60-pager to a hardback 100-pager, full colour throughout with really lovely top-end print finishes. So it's got a matte. These are kind of technical terms which I'll be able to describe in it's Leica. So there's a matte laminate finish with a spot varnish on the front cover, on the outer covers. So what that means is if ever you've seen one of Games Workshop's codexes or any of those where they've got the lovely soft finish along most of it with some of the illustration has then got a really shiny varnish on, they're absolutely top quality print product. It's like that. So it's the only thing it doesn't have is an emboss, which sometimes Games Workshop products have. And then internally, it's full colour throughout. So it's the quality finish of it was vastly improved off the basis of how successful the Kickstarter was, because it's all with any printed product. The initial production that you have has got a lot of cost involved, because it's that you're having all the makeup of masters, if you like, front loaded with your first print run. So. Yeah, reprints are usually cheaper because you haven't got as much origination involved. But the first bit is the hardest bit. So that was where the success of the Kickstarter allowed it to have a really high front-end origination sort of quality. And then there was dice as well, which were custom molded. So the 6 faces custom molded dice. Each face you have to pay for. So again, there was quite a large cost there from the point of view of if I was standing outside of Kickstarter doing it off my own back, it would have taken me a very long time to be able to afford to do it. But through Kickstarter, I could produce something that long term, from the point of view of Second Thunder, it's produced the initial tooling, if you like, that puts the groundwork in place to then support the business as it progresses with this product, particular product line. So with Open Combat in particular. I think that kind of answers it. Yeah, again, I've gone off on one.
Oh, sorry. We're used to you, don't we? So, Kickstarter went well. Lots of backers, which is the important thing.
Yeah.
How did they go after that then?
Well, the come down was really what's just happened kind of thing. So I really didn't expect it. I didn't know what to expect. To be fair, and because I knew I wasn't getting into getting back to what Mike said earlier about overcommitting, because I wasn't getting involved in that. Adding in loads of add-ons and miniatures and things like that really expand Kickstarters to gargantuan proportions, where sometimes the number of backers doesn't necessarily increase, but the amount the individuals invest does. It's that I wasn't doing that. So in a sense, my workload hadn't really increased too much. However, there was additional writing to do and finalising. The biggest part was the design and artwork, because I had quite a lot produced already from the initial bit, but I was going to, once I knew the spec of the job was going up to such a level that it had hardback and all the rest of it, then I intentionally revisited the look and feel of it. So I got that time to sort of build in. So afterwards, it was let's get from my perspective internally, it was get the new look and feel ready. And then I had to sort of square off some time, essentially, that was just purely writing to write the additional content up. Most of it existed, but it was all over the place in different places because it was for supplements for later on. It was never actually put together as this is going to be the final thing right now. So I had to polish all that up and then get that into some sort of shape and form, which was usable in the final thing. So there was a lot of work to be done, but at the same time, it was manageable. Except for the fact that I was doing it on my own, which is why the delays occurred. It's that, real life jumping in the way.
So you were saying, you were clear that you weren't doing miniatures and that sort of thing. Did you get a lot of pressure to go that way from backers during the
not so much actually? Yeah, I mean, interestingly, there were a few comments saying, "Are you going to?" But there was no real push for it. In fact, actually, I'd say if anything, I had more people saying, "Really, really pleased you're keeping this one small and contained and manageable." You know, I had more people agreeing with the tack I took, if you like, the approach I took with it, where I wasn't going to go crazy and do loads of different things because I had everybody's attention at the time, where I was keeping it very contained. And that was purely because I was keeping my eye on the number of backers and what I thought was viable for me to control and manage and to deliver as well, which is the key thing. I mean, I can understand bigger businesses that have got a lot of external investment, if you like, prior to coming to Kickstarter. I can understand them doing huge, sprawling ones because I imagine they've got a lot of that work pre-done, if you like, and it's almost a part of their marketing machine doing a Kickstarter. But from my perspective, this was very much I might only do this one. This might be the only time I do it. Let's make it so it's one that works and it puts everything in place that I need to literally kickstart the business, not kind of get onto the gravy train or I don't know as it is a gravy train. I think it might actually be continually chasing your tail with successive Kickstarters. I didn't want to be in that environment. I wanted to be in the environment where I do this, it gives me everything I need to literally kickstart the business so that then I should be able to, if I do it properly from now on, run it in a more traditional sense, if you like. So from a product development, generating it and investing in it internally rather than going back to Kickstarter again. But that's just my own.
Once been working on this extra content, because the book's grown massively from 60 pages up to 100, so loads more content going in there. It was a nice, simple job then, just to get it printed, wasn't it? Or was it?
Yeah, that was the plan. Yeah, I've worked in print for a very long time. I mean, I've been in the design, sort of graphic design. I've worked in graphic design since 92-ish, something like that. So I know my way around in the sort of print side of business. And with running my own Kickstarter, you very often hear about people going overseas to China or whatever, and I have liaised with Chinese studios over the years for various design jobs. But I was very keen to have my book produced in the UK, mainly from my own state of mind, so that I could, if it needed to be, I could jump in the car and go and see them. But I sort of, I don't know. Yeah. I found a UK printer that I had lined up, and just before, I was in the process of finalising as much as I could, and I thought, well, I need to get the printers sorted out so then I can settle back down to finalising the book and getting things into proofreading and all the rest of it and any other tests and things. And I got an email from the printers saying that they were going into administration, and this is a UK printer. It's one of the biggest in the country that serviced the independent publishing sector and things. So when they went under, I was like, oh, right, okay. What am I going to go for next? And I looked around, and obviously the more time you take to finally go to press, the more you're eating into your capital, if you like. So your kind of costs are wavering around. And I wasn't entirely sure which printer to go for. And I looked around the UK again, and prices had changed and other people's specs were slightly different. So then I started to consider going overseas, and I ummed and ahed about that a little bit, and then I kind of changed my mind and came back to wanting to go with the UK, and eventually settled on a printer in Wiltshire. But by then I was in a strange financial position, so I had to do my own financial kind of juggling to make sure as I could get it how I wanted it to. And anyway, long story short, I eventually went with a UK printer, and it's absolutely fantastic. But the journey from start to finish was a lot rockier and up and down and all over the place than I really, really expected. Having worked in the business for a very long time, you can't really expect one of the biggest firms to just disappear, but they did. And that kind of changed things slightly.
So with the fact that, your major printer had just gone belly up and just at the point where you were just about to I mean, I suppose in some ways, the timing was better. At least they didn't go belly up after you'd given them.
Yeah, that was the key. I didn't lose any money.
Yeah, I was going to say, was the project at risk at any point?
No, it wasn't. It simply wasn't at risk. It was running long, which clearly it has done, but it was never at risk. The one thing, actually, thinking about printers, the printer going belly up was one issue, which put back finalising the book, because obviously it put quite a lot of pressure on me that I didn't expect, and that kind of knocked sideways in a creative kind of business. Kind of like if you've got sort of pressures coming everywhere, it kind of dulls your creative sense, if you like. So your writing slows down because you've got these things kind of playing on your mind. But the printers wasn't the only thing that kind of was a longer project than I expected. The other one was the dice manufacture. Now, when I had the dice sorted out, I'd sent them off. I actually paid up front for that company. Again, I used a UK-based company, but they had issues in their supply chain. So that slowed right down as well. And that took a lot longer than I anticipated to deliver. So there were an awful lot of things happening that I did not expect that slowed things down. Now, it didn't put the project at risk, but what it did do is grind through months of time as things were resolved. So it's more the unexpected was very, very unexpected, if you like. That you kind of plan in sometime, but there was a lot more unexpected that I was prepared for in that sense.
I know you've said you're not probably going to do another one, but if you did, what would you do different?
If I did, it would be have everything literally on the button to press print, if you like, and not add any extras in, not change the development, not listen to pressures from outside to do this, do that, do the other. It would literally be almost like a pre-order system, which then actually takes me to the point where I go, well, actually, why would you do it then? You just do a pre-order. And that's where my head's at the moment. It's like, if I'm in the position now where I think of, well, as much as it's a great marketing tool, from a business perspective, if I feel that I'd want to have everything ready to roll and it just needs that capital input, then I'd rather be in a position where I've got most of it myself or raised it through a bank or something like that. And then I just say, right, we've got a pre-order going up. You've got X amount of weeks. You can get in on a discounted price. After that, we press go. And then within 4 weeks' time or whatever it is, we'll be shipping. It's much more a traditional business thing. So in which case, why would you go to Kickstarter?
Basically, much more like North Star do.
Yeah, the Nickstarters. Yeah, I think the approach that they take, aside from being completely and utterly in their control and thus not losing the percentages that have to go out to the various businesses that, the Kickstarter and the Amazon payment system and all that kind of stuff, you don't lose out that element of your capital that you raise, but also it's more traditional in a sense. It's more of a kind of a pre-order system, which is what I guess quite a few companies use or appear to use Kickstarter as. I think there's an awful lot of factors involved with companies going to Kickstarter because it's become almost an integral part of the games and the hobby business, the crowdfunding scene now. And I said to Gav the other night, I said, it feels like a rite of passage. Once you've done one, kind of, in the modern era, that's kind of the way that you do business almost. I mean, you see even big companies doing it. I noticed the other day that Privateer are doing it for some of their board games. Because as much as their miniature business and their miniature games are quite powerful forces within the wargaming community and established, their board games they see as requiring that extra bit of marketing exposure. So they're using the Kickstarter engine to help spread the word through the board gaming community. So it's interesting seeing established companies as big and strong. I mean, this is an assumption on my part, if you like, as big and strong as someone like Privateer. They're using it as a part of their whole marketing approach. Because it's the only reason I'm saying this is because I went down to look at it because I thought, oh, what's their intention on this then? Why are those guys using it? And it's quite clear, they're very upfront about it. They say it's the marketing value of Kickstarter to reach board gamers, which maybe Privateer isn't associated with. So there are different reasons for businesses using Kickstarter, and I think that's all part of the the environment that we're in now in the hobby business, if you like. I think a lot of businesses do it for different reasons, and a lot of individuals use it for different reasons as well, I think.
There does seem to be a sort of shift in how Kickstarters are sort of perceived these days, and I think you've actually nailed the point there. Is maybe when Kickstarter started, it was to allow people to back new companies and get new products out there.
Yeah.
But now more and more, you just see it as a pure marketing ploy.
Yeah, I mean, that's
marketing tool, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of like when I went into it. I went into it with the hope that I could get Open Combat into print, because I'd had an awful lot of people saying, "Oh, I wish it was in print because I'd buy it then." Because my initial plan with Second Thunder was to be very slow, very organic in the growth of the business, and use the digital releases to power physical production.
I remember the conversation.
Exactly, yeah. Now, in the reality, if you like, 18 months on, approximately, since that initial digital release I did in October 2014, the reality is, as much as the clamour for online for digital content is always quite loud, people do like physical books or physical product. And I'm the same, you know. I mean, as much as I work and live and breathe in the kind of print and design sort of area, I prefer physical books.
I think I've gone on record in the past as saying that I want both. I want a digital copy because if I'm doing things like scenario writing, having a copy of the rule book next to me that I can cut and paste bits from or whatever is brilliant. But as soon as you get me near a wargames table, I want a book I can flick through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the other thing is it's one of those odd little parts of the hobby, if you like. We have a physical hobby. It's the one thing we have very different from video games and app games and things, is you are physically in the presence of your opponent with a physical table and physical models and all the rest of it, and we physically paint them and all the rest of it. You know, there's a lot. The rule book is part of that. Now, it's like that. It's a tangible kinesthetic. I think that's the right word. That kind of touchy-feely kind of part of the hobby. That's what we're in, and as even the younger players coming through, they like flicking through a book as much as they live and breathe on notebooks or tablets and such. So it's like that they still, you stick a rule book in front of somebody with cool photos in, they will be flicking quite happy and enjoying it in a different way to what they'd be if they were just flicking sideways across the screen.
Which is, as we said last episode, is why things like Exilis and Golem Arcana were probably doomed to failure in the long term.
Yeah, they were odd. I mean, you were quite into it. Was it Exilis, was it, Neil?
Yeah, Exilis.
Yeah, I mean,
huge fan.
When I saw those come out, I thought I was really interested to see how they did, because it felt like it was a hybrid that, I mean, this is just from my perspective as a gamer, you know, just like everybody else. It's like, when I looked at it, as much as I was quite attracted to some of the models, I couldn't get my head around playing a game that I had to use a device for, when I'd rather just chuck a few dice or flip a few cards or whatever it was. You know, it's that kind of, it wasn't, I'd want a physical mechanic for a game that I'm playing physically, if you see what I mean. And
yeah, I fully understand, and maybe that is so as you were describing that whole physicality business, maybe that is the barrier to this ever happening, because we have this physicality about what we do.
Yeah.
And maybe it is a case of we'll never actually cross that line.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what was going to come around the corner. And, you know, there's a lot of development companies doing all sorts of things in the video games industry, which are always pushing the boundaries between, you know, existing with the physical product and existing with it. I mean, you just look at the kids' games on the consoles. You've got like the Skylanders and the various things like that, which are, you know, you get a toy that actually albeit you put it on a platform and then that actually goes into the game, but the kids can play with the toys as well. And you see some of them on wargaming tables at the moment where they're being repainted because they're buying them cheap or whatever. But there is an element of cross pollination.
Don't knock it. You can make an open combat warband out of them.
Yeah. You can make an open combat warband out of anything you like. That's the cool thing. But yes, from a games industry point of view, across all platforms and areas, then there is going to be some cross-pollination. And I think that from my perspective, personally as a gamer, and a wargamer and a tabletop gamer, I couldn't get my head around the kind of having those dual games, if you like. But getting back onto where we came from. Like I originally released digitally with the plan to use the funds through digital to fund physical product. What this last 18 months has taught me, and the talking to gamers at shows and just online and all the rest of it, and the messages I've been sent, is physical product is still outweighing the odds. And as Mike said, some people do want both, and that's fine, because, both is the best of both worlds, isn't it? Essentially, but I think the majority of us in our hobby still prefer physical rule books, even though we may like to have to. We still prefer that physical rule book, which is what essentially kind of helped push my way into doing the Kickstarter, because it was the marketing aspect and the physical, actually getting a physical product, and then off the basis of that, then seeing how that then translates to how I view future development, All
right, so moving right up to date, as it's now the 17th of February when we're recording this, you got dice?
Yeah.
Big bag of dice.
I got 2 big bags of dice. Black and white ones. Yeah.
Oh, lovely.
So how many dice you got?
Thousands.
Thousands of them. It's dice, thousands of them.
Thousands.
And you filled up half of your front room with lots and lots of boxes of books. So the
boxes and packaging. I've got that new print smell floating through the house.
So the really big question is, have you posted mine out yet?
No, I'm afraid not. Not yet. No, my next thing now, my next 2 weeks, because I'm going to be going to a lot of shows this year, and the next 2 weeks is going to be sorting out the shipping and all that kind of details, making sure everybody's addresses are correct, if people have moved, what their new address is, and all that. Just absolutely nailing down the details of things, and then getting things shipped out over the next 2 weeks. That's because I'll feel I can relax properly and get into really motoring on promoting Open Combat into, retail and game stores, gaming clubs and all the rest of it across the UK and various shows. I'll feel more confident and free to do that once I've got everyone's stuff shipped out, all the Kickstarter backers and all the guys that pre-ordered. So once I've got all that out of the way and everybody's got their things, I can then really sort of feel free to go full into expanding the player base, because that's the key. I think, as I mentioned before, the number of backers is the most important thing for me, because that's the number of potential players that you've got off the bat. Because it's not all, because obviously these things take time, and some people won't be playing, or some people have moved on to new projects now, and all that kind of stuff. That's always what you've got to kind of bear in mind. And there are people who have bought the PDF that perhaps didn't even go for the physical. They're still playing quite happily with the PDF, and they're not interested in physical. So there is the kind of little parts of it. So my first year, if you like, my next 12 months is going to be all about expanding the number of people that are playing Open Combat and getting it out there.
In our last conversation that we had with in the last show, we were talking to Byron Collins, and funnily enough, discussing Kickstarters, as you do. And one thing he was talking about was the economy of scale.
Yeah.
Did I ask a cheeky question and say, so what size print run did you go for in the end?
In the end, I went for 1,500.
Right.
For Open Combat, because as much as if I'd have gone for another 1,000, my unit cost had come right down. I've gone on I did kind of running the numbers, because now I'm talking with a physical product with real actual numbers, and there's no ifs and buts about this. I've got real numbers to put it with. I worked out on the basis that once I've shipped out all the copies for the backers and the pre-orders, and also sent out copies to the reviewers and all that kind of stuff, I'll then have enough copies where I've got a sizable proportion that I could sell into, I can take around with me with shows. I've also got a reasonable number that I can then, once I've sold them, if I can retain enough of the capital, I can then get another print run done. And the next print run will be cheaper to do because all the origination's already been done. So it's that kind of playing. You're kind of having to sort of play a very careful balancing act with it, because you don't want to overcommit and just find yourself with loads of things that you can't sell. At the same time, the economies of scale it is a pressure. You do feel kind of, I ought to go for X, Y, Z. But there's no point in buying thousands of them if you don't know you can sell them. So, especially when you've got your origination through that first print run, that's where the big cost is. So the first one's the hardest part, but after that you should be okay. That comes down to the sales then.
Are you going to go to a user distributor And so
I've got wholesalers, that kind of thing. Yeah, I've got a lot of things to do. Now I've got the physical book. It opens the doors to talking to people a lot more. And, there's not only retailers, there's all the gaming clubs and things up and down. Retail, I want to get it into retail. That's the key. Because I think as much as many people shop online, having physical, it gets this physical product thing again. Physical product in a physical location where people can flick through it and make their decision. That still has a huge weight on people's decision making compared to just looking at something and going, "Oh, I'll have that." It's an emotional attachment we make to things, isn't it? You get emotionally attracted to products. It's why it shows. People at shows, you go to shows, and I mean, I do. I go to show if I've got a budget in my pocket. If I hope I've left my card at home because I know I'm going to spend what I take, because when I see something, it's like, well, I'll have one of them. It's like, because you see it there and then, it's you can actually get a sense of what you're going to do with them, whatever they are, the figures or the rules, whatever it is. And I think being in retail is really important. I don't think, even though a lot of us shop online, I still think there is a role for physical stores. Plus, it's a social hobby.
There's quite an interesting contrast there. I mean, I think Neil will quite understand this, given he's a musician as well. But our local music shop is closing because they can't compete with online.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that there is something about spending X hundred quid on a guitar that you really ought to be sitting with it round your neck before you ever cross anybody's palm with plastic.
Absolutely.
And there's almost
stairway denied.
Yeah, but the weird thing is, for all that, it's wargames that is still drawing people to physical shows where they can physically handle merchandise it's perfectly possible to take a perfectly decent photograph of.
Yeah.
And yet, music shops where you really want to handle the goods are going down the tubes to be replaced by buying it off Amazon or Thomann in Germany or whoever.
Yeah, it's a very odd sort of market that we're in, really, retail market for across all sectors. It is a strange environment. And as a producer, if you like, a publisher, which that was a strange thing as well, I see, over the last 18 months, is coming to the realization that I'm a publisher. The Second Thunder is a publisher now, because going through that process, I see, yes, I'm getting ISBN numbers, I'm getting involved, talking to libraries, and all of that kind of stuff that it wasn't even in my head as a creator. That's just writing a game and creating a game that I want people to play. But yeah, I think as a producer, that you kind of have to look at all the routes to market and cut your cloth accordingly. But I think in where the hobby games market actually has an interesting kind of dual reality that it lives in, is as much as there's a lot of discounters online and you can get stuff for crazy prices from different websites all over the place. Stores are still, in the UK, not so much perhaps, but in the States, stores are still where lots of gamers go, and that's their gaming club. We've got clubs that are external to stores, mostly across the UK, I guess. But there are still stores that are the focal point of the games community in the areas, if you like. And I think that is quite an important part. If you have a presence in a store where the gaming communities are, then you're on show, if you like. Even if they're not playing it, you're still on show in the back of their mind, So it gives you a presence, if you like, when they start to look to play something else or add to their collection. So I think stores still have an important role to play.
They got a massive one. I mean, speaking to somebody whose gaming club is part of a very large store.
Yeah. Is it Firestorm that you play at? Yeah.
Yeah.
You told me it was completely separate.
Okay, there's a 10-foot walkway between the two. But it's an open walkway.
Stuff falls off the shelf. Yes, I remember now.
Stuff is falling off the shelf like nobody's business.
I hear they've actually started issuing helmets at the door.
Yes, and baskets as well. But it's quite amazing how the two things feed off each other, and how when something new arrives in the store, suddenly you see it being played. Yeah. And because it's being played by a few people, other people then go to the store to buy it.
Yeah.
And it's really weird to watch that sort of dynamic of.
I hope they paint it first.
I've actually seen people buy things from the store, glue it together, and put them on the table and start playing them.
Yeah.
One guy actually was putting together an army list and went, "Oh, I really want this," and he went and bought it. Used blue tack to stick the model together just so he could use it in this game.
That's amazing.
But that's the only thing that only happens when you've got the two things together.
Yeah, and I think, I'm a huge fan of tabletop wargaming. It's just of all its stripes. I'm not tribal in the sense of like one game's better than another one. It's like every game has its merits and its own little foibles, if you like.
Except for the fact, obviously, Open Combat is the best thing since sliced bread.
Oh, it is. Everybody's showing it. Well, to be honest, if you own miniatures, of course you can. yeah. Well, they can now. Yeah. But it is. It's the one that should be on everybody's shelf because anybody can play it with anything they like. But yeah, I think that the hobby as a whole, you kind of hear things every now and again, or you see little stories appear on blogs or whatever of, it's the end of this, that, the other, video gaming's going to kill it. But I think that it's that human interaction that's involved, and it's that shared experiences that we have that gives it longevity. I think that's what it's got, and it's got. I mean, I've got I don't know if you guys have looked through the updated PDF since I released that. There's the page in it that I put in there about miniature wargaming that just sort of talks about what it offers players. There's so many aspects to the hobby. There's the miniature painting. Some people see it as a chore. Some people love it. It's the sole part of the hobby. There's the actual wargaming itself, the challenge of playing, your mind against your opponent. And then there's the terrain making and the storytelling aspects. It's the anecdotes that we have, and the chance to sort of look into history and then play things out that you've read in history. If you've got a particular interest in history, there are so many aspects to the hobby that are just they don't exist in other hobbies, or other areas of gaming, and it just makes it such a rich and diverse environment. So I just think and when people talk about the golden age, very often they're referring to Games Workshop back in the 80s when they were producing games left, right, and centre. But I think now we are in a golden age of gaming because there are so many companies producing things, and I think the environment's changed as well. Very often, years ago, when there were few titles, we perhaps had our core game that we always played. We had a main game, if you like, and then we'd have a little play with the odd other games. Whereas now I think there's such a broad range of games that we jump in and out of games quite a lot. Now, we still may have a nominal main game, but I think we are much more open to experiment with new games now and play with new titles for a few months and then put it away. And then we might pick it up again in a few months later. And it's quite a dynamic environment now, I think, for the hobby, which is only a good thing, in my opinion, anyway.
See, we've all been very quiet now. We're just waiting for you to say something else.
No, I was holding my breath. I thought, I've been going on for a while. I have to stop.
I thought I was just finishing off that 3-course meal.
I was going to say, have you finished painting a Napoleonic army now?
Don't mention the crossbelts. No.
Oh, I'm looking forward to doing my gunpowder supplement, actually. Because, but anyway, no, I'm not going to talk about that now.
No.
Actually, you are. Okay, so you're now in a situation where you have a physical product in your hand, and basically everything's ready to go. You've officially arrived as a publisher.
Yeah, it feels like that, actually.
Yeah. When we went back to when we talked to you originally, and you were talking about slowly growing the game and looking at things like digital supplements and various other bits and pieces, and then obviously here we have a Kickstarter where all of a sudden things like loads of stuff appeared in the book that you hadn't originally planned, and various other bits and pieces. So where do you go now?
Well, my original plan was to release micro supplements digitally, which would then be they're optional elements that if people wanted them, they would add extra either detail or little nuances to the game that could expand the experience, but are not necessary to play the core game. So the core game, the book, you could just have the core book, open combat. You've got absolutely enough in there to keep you going for years, because there's scenarios with variations to those scenarios in there. There's also the campaign system, which you could keep going with a long time, playing how you like. There's an awful lot in there. It's essentially a massive big toolbox that you could do what you like with. But at the same time, because of the basis that I wrote it to be modular, so that you could sort of apply extra details or extra elements to it as you want to, there is a lot of expandability to it, if you like. And that was the intention all along, was to produce a core set of rules that was universal, or as universal as possible, to allow people to play in as a freer environment as they could, to express their own intentions with their models. So if they think a Viking berserker is a particular thing, or a Saxon warrior or a goblin or whatever, they can stat it up the way they want it to, and it's all fine. It all works that way. Now, going forward, there is a series of supplements now. My initial plan was to do a load of micro supplements digitally. I have in the last 18 months come to the decision that original intention's perhaps not the route to take, due to the fact that people want physical product, as we discussed earlier. So I think what my original intention is to do monthly releases of micro expansions. Now I've come round to the thought that what I will do is do 2 physical supplements this year. That's the intention. It does depend on raising the revenue for it. And as we said, I prefer to raise it internally. So it does depend a lot on how I expand the player base for Open Combat to drive that income. So 2 physical supplements this year, which I know I can do with my current, how much man hours I can do. Alongside that, what I will do is I will take the idea of the micro expansion or the micro supplement and actually use it off the basis of some of the additional content, actually, which has inspired it, is the idea of these little micro campaigns. So essentially, when we play war games, we often play them with a scenario. So the scenario could have any kind of victory conditions, depending on what you're trying to portray. Now, within Open Combat, the rulebook, what I've got is like, here's a scenario like a retrieve the prize scenario, for instance, which was where you've got 5 locations of interest on the tabletop. You're looking for something of importance, and you've got to search for it in these locations. And the core scenario, there are a potential 13 items that can be found. So you've got to kind of route your way through, as well as fighting off the other warband who's trying to do the same thing. Now, there are also a couple of variations of that scenario within the rulebook now, which allow you to have a slightly different take of it. So it gives you a slightly different theme or approach to the scenario, which changes the game. So each game you play is going to be different. It's the same core scenario in the sense that mechanics of it, you're searching for something, but you change what's actually involved in what they're finding, and it changes the texture of the game completely, and also the character of the game. And off the back of that, then you can actually create micro campaigns of an evening's play, because my Open Combat plays very quickly, so you could play in an evening. You could have a little micro campaign, which is essentially playing the same scenario over 3 times. But in the case of Retrieve the Prize, if you were doing the Grave Robber sort of variation, where you're trying to, you're working for some wise person or scientist or something to try and find body parts for him, then you could work on the basis of the first person to complete a whole person rather than just looking for limbs, if you like. So you could play a little micro campaign, which is where you're trying to be the first person to get the parts for the monster that scientist or wizard or whatever it is trying to complete. Now, you're essentially playing the same scenario, but it takes on its own narrative by actually adding in that little bit of, well, actually, this scenario, I got a head and 2 legs, so I'm after a torso and 2 arms now, kind of thing. So you play it again. And even if you're finding body parts, which in the normal scenario, you may be thinking, oh, that's great. Well, actually, now you're tossing them aside or just holding on to them because you don't want the other person to get them. And it changes the context of it. And your evening's play, even though it's a simple pick up and play game, which you could just play it one off, suddenly, just by having this scenario written in such a way, you can play it 2 or 3 times and you've got a whole little narrative going on through it. So you've got a little story through your evening's play that wouldn't necessarily be there if you just sat down and had a throwdown game of who's going to win. the experience of that. And if Grave Robbing's a bit grisly, it could always be relics. It could be a reliquary suit of armour, and you're looking for the components of that piece of armour or whatever it is. So playing with kids, if you don't want to be doing robbing graves or whatever it is, you could be playing getting parts of a statue or whatever. There are whichever context you wanted to play it in. And I do discuss this within the rulebook, is that, the context is all up to you. You can apply whatever your own sensibilities are to it. But what this does from the perspective of writing future micro digital content is producing scenarios with special rules in them, maybe a few things that could be introduced into the rules of your regular games if you wanted to, but generally just producing little digital content which is scenario led with maybe a reference to a little micro campaign that you could play and things like that. So that as that is released, because those are quite small and quite easy to produce, if I built up a collection of those, they could then be combined into a physical product, which would be a selection, a kind of compilation of scenarios and micro campaigns that could be sold as a physical product at a later date. And that's in support. So the game continues to get support through digital content between the physical releases and any other releases that Second Thunder has over that time. But it's a different approach to what I originally intended, because the original intention was, for instance, the first supplement that I will be releasing will be the Swordsman supplement, which adds new rules, new skills and abilities, and there are scenarios in there as well, new scenarios in there, and it's all around the idea of the kind of swordsman and the finesse of a swordsman and different types of swordsman. It's almost like a very detailed look at something rather than just a generic, it's a hand weapon. It's a kind of that sort of approach, but it allows a different kind of model or different war bands to be built, and it's optional. It's purely optional. So, but that physical one introduces rules and abilities and things like that give you extra things to play with within the game. But it would be a physical as well as a digital release, whereas the micro expansions, the little digital releases, will now be, rather than being rules led, they'll be more scenario led and campaign sort of micro campaigns, scenario led. So it just gives me a little bit more flexibility where I can feed physical product into the marketplace as well as still keep support going digitally, which itself can translate into physical product further down the line. So it's changed from when I originally planned it, where I was going to do all the releases digital and then see where I was financially to be able to go into print. I've slightly altered it, and that's come from producing the additional content in the rulebook, what felt like it would work. Because many of us play two-player games. That's the thing. So scenarios are a good micro expansion, that should help support the game going forward.
Mm-hmm. So with these micro expansions, would there be something that you do on your own, or would you turn around to the community and go, if you've got an idea for one of these things?
That's something that I'm quite keen to sort of develop over going forward. I'm not going to put a timescale on it because it's just going forward. I think there's so much to explore with Open Combat that there's a long, long time that we can go producing additional content that doesn't impact. I mean, the funny thing with producing war games is very often there's a clamour for support, and in war games that are based on every miniature as a rule, where miniatures are only released if they've got a rule that, the two are the rules of the game and the miniatures, that they are intertwined totally and utterly. In those instances, there is a chance that the continual expansion of the game causes issues down the line where you just get that power creep that comes into the game naturally because of that having to come up with something new every time you produce a miniature. Now, there is still the potential for power creep if you're just producing expansions for a rule set, even without models. But it's an environment that you've got a little bit more control over because you're not trying to sell miniatures. So you can throttle back how much extra rules that produce something new, entirely new, rather than interact with existing rules. There's a slightly more controlled environment that you're expanding in, rather than that you're being forced to produce XYZ number of extra rules because you've XYZ number of models in the market. So that there's a slightly different thing going on. I don't know. I think I may have gone off on a tangent there. Sorry, Mike.
No, it's really interesting. I mean, like you say, it's more about telling the story than selling the concept, I suppose.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the support for the game, I mean, that was it. It was about getting other people to write content. That is something that I am keen on. The first few, I think what it is it's almost I've got to get in place the format, if you like, so that people can see what is expected of the content. And the one thing with the physical supplements, the rulesy kind of supplements, if you like, they introduce new skills and things, they are, the size of those is going to be dependent on the topic. So the swordsman supplement will be probably smaller than the monsters supplement, and the monsters supplement, which is kind of very fantasy led, if you like, whereas the swordsman's much more kind of broad appeal, universal appeal for both historical and fantasy. So the content of those will create a slightly different sized document, but the format will be familiar. And from a point of view of the little micro ones, which are very scenario led or story led, then they will have a format that people will be able, other creators, if you like, would be able to pick up on and, if it looks the business, then we'll kind of work together and, publish it. So it's that kind of, user generated content. I mean, the Second Thunder forum's got a lot of content that's been generated by other guys that I've just come, they've taken the game, they've run with it, and there's some great ideas on there. I mean, the magic system's something I'm often asked about. When's there going to be the real magic system, an out and out specific magic system? Because within Open Combat, it's handled through the psychological abilities at the moment, because it's a universal system that has to apply equally to historical and fantasy. So it's arguably a low fantasy in that sense. Whereas a magic system, which is an out and out magic system, is very high fantasy. So because, guys chucking fireballs around it's pretty much you're talking about proper fantasy worlds that people imagine when they hear the term.
The problem is it's not only very high fantasy, it's potentially very setting specific.
Yeah.
And what works, for example, for sake of argument, the Forgotten Realms, is not what works for Middle-earth.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is where Open Combat's got quite a great strength, and at the same time, for some people, it could be seen as a little bit of a weakness, because I don't specify a setting. You can, if you want your fantasy setting to feel a particular way, you can play your games a particular way, because the game is, it's a universal system which allows you to play whatever you want to play out of it. The context, the interpretation of the mechanics, if you like, of a rule is up to you. If you want to think that rule that is ostensibly called a fireball is a fireball, that's fine. Mechanically, the rule could equally, if you wanted to apply it as something else because of the way the context of the setting that you've chosen for it, it's fine, because the rule doesn't change. It's just the way that you view it in your imagination as you're playing.
Essentially, it's I think Quadrant 13, which is the Lardy's sci-fi rules, has a concept of chrome on top of, so it's a damage bolt, and then you add the chrome, which says actually it's fire. Yeah.
Mechanically, it'll be, you could say what you like. The chrome, you could say what you like, but mechanically, it does exactly the same job. I think that it's one of those odd things in games development that we're so used to now being told what things are that we take a very literal sense to rules when we look at them. And that's where I've taken a very different approach with Open Combat, is that it's like, well, what I want people is to do is to feel free. The mechanics are strong and they all work. You don't have to worry about breaking anything. It's a flat point system. Just feel free to imagine it the way you want to do it, because as long as your opponent, yourself and your opponent are aware of what you're playing with, and what you've given it according to the rule book, what you've, that guy's got a halberd, that guy's got a spear, whatever it is. If you're playing with a rhinoceros or something, on the tabletop, a guy riding a rhinoceros or some rhinoceros beast, the fact that the halberd counts as his head jabbing out, that's fine. It's that counts as approach, isn't it? You often see that, in wargaming, where it's like, this counts as this. And proxy, and you hear the term proxying very often. There's nothing wrong with that, I don't think, as long as everyone's clear on it. As long as you're playing, it's that social contract. As long as you're kind of playing both on the same page, everything's good, and that's what most players. I think the competitive environment, the hard competitive environment, that are very literal in their interpretation of things. Intentionally so.
I've seen some quite amusing ones recently. There was somebody who wanted to play a dwarven balloon with a flamethrower in their Kings of War army. But couldn't. So they took an elven ally with a elven lord mounted on a dragon and said,
to get the
"This is
mechanics.
as far as you're concerned, this is an elven lord mounted on a dragon."
Yeah. Yeah, and that's fair play, and fair play to Mantic for that. Because,
I thought it was delightfully inventive.
Kings of War has got quite an open approach to the armies. They're quite. I think that's partly because they've got a product range that's still expanding, so there's a lot of gaps. So they're quite open to people putting their own models in and saying like, "This is this." But I think what's happened, what I think, I kind of sort of follow the Kings of War community because I've played it. I've been to a few tournaments. I haven't played the recent edition yet, but the thing that seems to have happened is there's been a kind of an influx of new players that have a slightly different approach that is starting to sort of just rub against the previously quite free-flowing community that were there. And
these wouldn't be players who are used to playing with fantasy miniatures that have square bases.
But don't anymore.
The Warhammer scene changed a lot, didn't it? I'm actually one of the few people that doesn't mind Age of Sigmar, I must admit. I quite like it as a game, but there you go. I don't think I've got that kind of vested interest that some have. I just quite like pushing soldiers around, so it doesn't bother me.
Was that even when the bases overlap?
Yeah, that I don't do. I thought that was an odd one, just from a point of view of looking after your models. It just felt a little bit strange. Yeah, but as a game, hey, it's fine as far as I'm concerned. It's not a skirmish game. A lot of people called it a skirmish game, and it really isn't. It's a mass combat game. You get all the little triggers that start when you start having lots of guys on the table. But it's a classic example actually of how passionate the communities are within followings. It's the responses that rolled out of that was quite dramatic. I was surprised by it. I have to admit that just how loud and angry so many people were. But I guess that's a sign of the way it was handled, if you like, the crossover. But that's a different conversation entirely, isn't it?
Oh, that's a whole other podcast.
But yeah, as far as
it's a whole other podcast, and we definitely need a round to look.
Yeah. As far as Open Combat's concerned, it's purely the supplements and expansion. I'm really excited about getting the stuff out, and at the moment, as much as I'd love to be pouring out loads and loads of supplements with exploring loads of different areas, I've got to be conscious of the fact that the first year of it physically being in existence, I've got to expand the player base to be able to support selling supplements. So that is one of the key areas now, is getting people who have bought into Open Combat, hopefully they can convince other people to buy into Open Combat, which helps to expand it, which then allows the investment into producing more supplements. Because if your game's very small, you can only go so long supporting it with supplements, because not everyone that plays it will buy every supplement. That's not how it works. Some supplements will apply to some people and other supplements will apply to other people, and it's just people's preferences. That's what we are. We're kind of magpies, aren't we? So we'll kind of see one thing and go, we'll have that, and then others we just won't be interested in. So you have to be very conscious of that when you're developing support for a game going forward. But I'm all in on Open Combat now, and second, I'm all in. From a business perspective, this is my job now. I don't do external design work. So that was one of the biggest changes over the last 18 months, was going all in, and putting everything, risking it all essentially. So,
right.
there's a certain incentive to make it a success when you're back against the wall.
So, because when we first spoke to you, it's very much a case of, I'm developing this in between doing work which is putting food on the table.
Yeah, that's right. And now this is it. So I've kind of gone all in, because it's the only way you can do it justice. That's one of the things that you find, is that it's very easy to try and keep tickling something along in the odd time that you can, but you can't provide a suitable service to clients if, on the other hand, you're trying to do this, and you're dividing your time between two disciplines, if you like, or two projects. It's too difficult when it comes to actually earning a living, if you like, and running a business. So trying to run concurrently two businesses was just too difficult to do either justice. So I had to make the decision, and I've gone this way. It's, Second Thunder has got a lot of work to do this next few years. It's exciting. It's quite scary, but at the same time, I think with what I know that I've got coming through, I think it's going to be quite successful. But that's all. The proof's in the pudding, isn't it? So we'll see where we are in another 6 months, 12 months time.
So there you go then, folks. If you haven't bought Open Combat yet, go and buy it. Otherwise, Carl's children will starve.
Okay, I'm sold.
Yeah.
I actually didn't back the Kickstarter, believe it or not.
Oh,
I think you're into bigger games, aren't you, Mike? I think most of the games are much bigger, aren't they?
Yeah, but although, to be fair, one of the purposes behind picking up the likes of Conan was, I could try Open Combat with this.
Yeah. I think quite a few people have got the figures to Conan. Haven't you got it, Mike, as well?
No, it hasn't shipped yet.
Oh,
It hasn't shipped yet. It's not coming for 6 months.
Oh, I watched that one when it was in, and I was like, because I'm a big Conan fan, but I didn't buy in because I just didn't have the money to buy in, so it was watching it. But there's quite a few that are kicking around with all those amazing barbarian figures. And,
Blood Rage has some quite nice... Blood Rage is more a board game, but it's got some quite nice game tokens as figures as well.
Yeah.
But,
I think
it's on my purchase list, so don't worry. I'll feed your children at least one round of beans on toast.
I was going to say, think of the children. Think of the children.
Yeah, well, I'm at pretty much every show I can get.
Oh, see you at Hammerhead then.
I am at Hammerhead, actually.
Are you coming to Hereward?
Yeah, I had an email from Ruben. Is it Ruben? Yeah, I sent him an email to say, can I get in? And he said they're going to be sending out things in 2 weeks' time or something. So
I'll remind him.
I'm on the list.
Since he's our secretary and I'm the chairman, I shall discharge my responsibility and remind him gently.
I'm on the list for that one. So,
we look forward to it.
Yeah, so that'd be cool. Yeah, I've got in March. I'm going to be at Hammerhead. I'm actually running a participation game, so I'm not allowed to sell from the table. But I think next week I will be setting up a kind of order and pick up at the show because I've agreed with the guys that organise Hammerhead that if it's an order they've made on the website, then they can pick it up from the table. That's fine. So I'll be setting that up and writing about that on the website, just so that people can come and play the game. I know there's a few of the backers are going to be coming to see me and say hello at the at Hammerhead as well. So I can sort of pre-sell, if you like, at Hammerhead, but I wasn't in time to get on the trader list. So it's primarily a participation table. But then I'm at the Wolverhampton show at Lumwell. Is it WMMS or something like that?
WMMS.
Yeah, I'll be going to that. I've managed to get in on that one. And I'm at Sheffield Triples, the 2-day up in Sheffield. That's March. And then April, I'm actually in Cardiff, the DAFCON, the event that they're doing at Firestorm. I'm going to be running an event on the Saturday. And then the week after, I'm down at Salute. I'm a trader at Salute. So that's going to be my first Salute as a trader, which is going to be interesting. I've never experienced that. From what I've heard, it's quite busy. And
I suspect I'll be finding out as well, since I think we're on the game waiting list. So, which I've been told is rather large. So I'm probably going to be helping Ruben run his stall.
Right? Yeah. I think.
So we'll compare notes.
Yeah, I think it's one of those ones where you end up with a bit of a lurgy the week after, don't you? Where you can't speak or something.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, and then going forward in the year, I've got a lot more as well that I'm going to. There's the UK Games Expo in Birmingham. I'll be going down to that one 3-day there in, I think it's the NEC, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So I'll be down at that one. And there's one in Milton Keynes Campaign, is it? I think that one's called.
See you there.
Yeah, I'll be at that one.
Yeah.
And then
that's one in the shopping centre.
That's great.
That's
a great show, that is.
I've never visited that one, but I saw that
we've done it as a participation game a couple of times. Fundamentally, it's in an open area, big open area between. I think John Lewis is next, and it literally is open to the public. Yeah. All the games are participation. Yeah, and there's usually quite a decent bunch of traders. They're really friendly folks, and you get a great crowd.
Yeah, it's interesting. I kind of, with having sort of got to the point now where I actually have a physical product, the number of shows that I'm keen to go to now, because it's obviously all about expanding the player base and spreading the word about you kind of your game. I'm suddenly seeing shows that I'd never heard of when I was just a punter, if you like, because I'd just go to the ones that I could get to within an hour or so. That was what. Whereas now I'm going to be sort of travelling up and down all over the shop, really. That BritCon, I think I'm signed up on BritCon. That's up in Manchester, I think. Yeah. And I've just had an email the last day or so with the guys who run Crisis, so I'm looking at going over to Antwerp to Crisis as well. So there's quite a few others that I've not yet nailed down. So I won't bother mentioning them in case I don't get in, but there's quite a few others as well. So I'm hoping to be doing at least one a month for the next year, basically. I'm going to let myself have December off.
There you go, folks. You can see Carl at any number of shows around the country this year.
Yeah,
help him put clothes on his children's backs.
Yeah, let's get it going. Let's spread the word. But there's other games as well coming through. But again, that's all based on revenue. So I have to be slow. And, getting back, touching on that Kickstarter comment, it's like, well, actually, let's grow Open Combat and support Open Combat for the next 12 months. And with Gav not being here, I'm not going to say too much, but we are thinking about sort of releasing something at Derby Worlds this year that we haven't talked about anywhere else. So, but we'll see. We'll see where we are. We have.
Oh, in that case, then it sounds like we've got to get you and Gav back on the show.
Yeah, we need to nail that one down first. We're still talking about it. It's actually bizarrely, it's the thing that we were working on. I mentioned it in the preface in Open Combat that we were working on something in 2011, and it's actually the project that we were playing with back then. This sort of concept that we were messing around with, that was where the first conversation about Open Combat, which was something that was unrelated to what we were working on at the time. And then Open Combat's come out first, and the other one, we've just left it bubbling around, and we still kick it around every now and again. But we're actually thinking, let's pull that back out and see if it's got some legs, if you like, So, and that's, Gav's got hundreds of things that he's working on as well. It's that time and once you start to look at production, it's the investment up front. That's where you start to get to that squeaky bit. Because I think, you have Rich on, don't you? From the Lardies a lot. And I think Rich must have hundreds and hundreds of ideas, and it's having the time to produce them, And I think at the last podcast that you did at Hereward, actually, the podcast that you did at Hereward, I think somebody mentioned it's like, it takes a long time for the Lordies to get things out, and it's like, well, it's a fair point, but at the same time, they're a small business, aren't they? So that it takes a long time to. The gestation period of things.
Particularly if you want to get it right.
Yeah, and it's absolutely the way it is. It's, as much as I know Open Combat's taken a long time to physically arrive, I know that it's a really good game. And I know that sounds like a trumpet because you wrote, of course you're going to say that. But it's one of these things where I said to Gav, when I read it so closely on the printers things, part of me wondered whether I'd be tired of reading it, but I wasn't. I just wanted to play it more and more when I kind of got to the end of it. And even now, it's like, just campaigns and things like that. It still excites me. And I wrote it, as you write a game that you want to play. That's what you write. That's the only way you can get that kind of genuine feeling throughout the game. You write the ones that you want to play, which is what you see with the Lardies. You can tell that they genuinely love what it is that they've produced. And you get that through putting that time in, and that's where I think Open Combat, as much as it's taken longer to come to fruition, it actually has benefited from that longer time of taking that, paying that attention to it, if you like. Rather than just banging it out and hoping, trying to keep sort of some super fast release schedule, actually spending that time, I think, gives you a stronger game and stronger product going forward. I can't understand these companies that do weekly releases. It just blows my mind. It really does. Absolutely blows my mind.
As I would say, normally they're just not very good.
Well,
just banging them out.
Arguably, they're big companies that do it, I guess. So they've got studios with lots and lots of people in there and a lot of manufacturing as well. So,
well, there is that as opposed to one person.
Yeah. That's the funny thing.
In his spare room.
Yeah, it's the funny thing with it. Actually, it's having done this. I hadn't really crossed my mind. The other thing, the reason that's the bottleneck in production, because I've done the photography, I've done the design, I've done the writing, I've done some of the illustration. Des Handley, who used to work for Games Workshop, he helped me out with some of his illustrations. So I did have a little bit of a hand there, but pretty much the whole thing is a one-man thing. So it's going forward. That's the bottleneck in production, if you like, at the moment for me. If I get other writers helping with supplements, that would be great. But I'm still the production bottleneck at the moment. Hopefully, Second Thunder will grow so I can actually employ other people to help out, and I can kind of direct, in that sense, the production of the quality of it. But that's a long way off, I think, at the moment.
Well, always remember, sleep's over.
Yeah. Oh, I do know that my body is no longer capable of doing the all-nighters that it used to do. That's one thing I do. That was definitely a 20-something thing. When you're 20-something, you can work stupidly long hours, but once you get into your 40s, you probably didn't really like doing it very much anymore.
Oh, Carl, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you for coming back on and talking through your experience in the birth of Open Combat as a physical product. We're really looking forward to seeing it. So, that's first expressed in the
drive it down. You are just down the pitch, mate, aren't you?
Well, this is it. I was going to say, I'm sure you get it here for Friday morning.
Yeah. Oh, well, my wife's kind of handling a lot of the dispatch stuff, so she's got some experience because she ran a mail order business for quite a while. So she kind of knows her way around that kind of side of things. So although we're in half term this week, so it isn't until next week that we can actually free up the time for both of us to go at it, get this stuff all shipped out. So, but yes.
Yeah. Oh, actually, you got fleets of post office vans leaving your premises on a daily basis.
Well, at least it's only 500 and something, rather than nearly 600 odd. It's not like 2,000. I don't know what I'd have done if they'd been that big. But yes, thanks very much for having me back on. It's been great. I'm kind of in a bit of a dazed state, so I don't know what I've been like waffling tonight. But I'm kind of still on the riding the wave.
I'm in no position to comment since this is my first time. But I gather it's a bit shorter than usual.
Controlled.
I think the term is new father.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that is exactly the term.
Yeah, I'm surprised you haven't been showing us photographs.
Oh, that happened on Twitter the other day.
I'm about to say, weren't they on Twitter?
Yeah. No, I was in that actually. I mean, I've got 4 kids, so I know the expectant father feeling quite well, and the sense of terror and excitement mixed together was exactly how I felt the day it was due to arrive. I was absolutely terrified, really excited, but absolutely terrified. But now I'm just in that kind of happy smiley face time now.
Yeah. But the thing is that you've done it.
Yeah.
You've succeeded in getting it out there. So hearty congratulations are well due.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be talking about all the miniature manufacturers and things. That's one of the things I'll be doing with the website going forward, because the beauty of Open Combat is you can play with any miniatures. So all those small companies that produce miniatures but don't have rules, it's very suitable for them. And, you need to give them a bit of a shout, because they're all small businesses, so everybody needs as much support as they can get, really. So I'll be doing that through the main website over the coming weeks.
We'll put you in touch with Annie if you want.
Yeah, I don't know whether Annie's realised it yet, but I did have a little message with her several months ago, because I got some of her original Shield Maidens, and one of those is actually in one of the shots, and she gets a little shout out, and there's a reference to her website within the book. So I don't know whether she's aware of that yet.
I'll be seeing her tomorrow, so I'll let her know.
I could tell you what page it was, but I'd have to flick through it. You spot.
And if you flick through it, tell you what, if you flick through it, you probably get distracted.
Yeah.
It's like staring into the eyes of your child. It's like,
to be honest, I'd probably end up writing, going off on a tangent and starting to write another scenario, which that's where I've been recently, and campaign stuff. It's it just excites. What I love about the whole experience is that it just excites me. I'm still excited about wargaming. You'd think that turning your hobby into your job would actually switch you off, but it hasn't. I'm really excited about the whole aspect of the hobby and the things that you can do with it, and particularly now I have a system that I've got an intimate relationship with, if you like. It just opens up such a wide vista of exploration and experimentation, if you like. So it's a very exciting time.
It's not coming across. You're just happy about it.
Yeah, just I don't know if I'm ready to go to bed. Yeah.
Well, you as well, eh?
Yeah, well, there'll be many wargamers who listen to these when they're painting, and they'll be having their faces in the paint palettes right now.
Well, mate, as I say, it's as always, it's been an absolute pleasure. Well, if nothing else, it sounds like a couple of us will bump into you at Hammerhead and probably around most of the shows this year.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this show. It's
yeah. So are you selling tour T-shirts this year? Or what?
No, I say there's quite a few things I want to gradually introduce that are sort of support products for Open Combat that are not related
Well, you can come back on in October and tell us all about those.
I've just seen the time. My screen was on sleep, and I've just seen how long we've been talking. Sorry about that again.
Hey mate, it's been great. No, we've really enjoyed it. It's been brilliant. And as I say, so all the very best with the book, and we look forward to catching up with you around the country. And please come back on the show. Bring Gav with you, and we look forward to chatting to you again, mate. All right.
Thanks for having me. And everybody have a good time playing with their war games, whatever it is that they're playing. But get Open Combat on the shelf.
Yes, sir.
Think of the children.
Cheers.
And on that note,
cheers, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
We're very pleased to welcome back to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast, Chris Birch of Modiphius Entertainment. Hello, Chris.
Hello there.
How you doing?
I'm all right. Not too bad.
Welcome
Could do
back.
with a bit more sleep.
Oh, you've got that mid-Kickstarter...
press refresh every hour disease.
Yeah, well, I kind of just go, you know what, I'll wake up in another 2 hours. Hopefully it was changed a bit.
Right. Oh, as opposed to, I need to wake up every hour because I need to post another stretch goal.
Yes. Yeah. Luckily we're in that bit now where it doesn't change quite as much every day.
If people don't know quite what we're talking about, how long ago was it? 3 or 4 days? No, it's been longer than that, isn't it?
Actually, yeah, one week ago last week. Yeah, Tuesday last week we launched.
Tuesday last week you launched the Conan role-playing game.
Yep, Robert E. Howard's Conan role-playing game. In fact.
Yeah, so that launched on Kickstarter, and how's it doing?
Yes, I mean, it's pretty spectacular. We had a lot of people signed up for it because we've gone for this very authentic approach to it. It's not really been done before. And it helps that we've got one of the biggest lineups of artists ever for a role-playing game with incredible names like Ken Kelly and Joe Jusko and Bron and Froley and Gardner and Thomas Giorello and others. And just stupendous. Every single book is a full-colour hardcover book with a major name artist doing the cover art. Brand new cover art as well, not reused.
Oh, cool. Oh,
yeah,
right.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, as I say, I noticed you'd be kind of going, oh, and by the way, we've got this name, and we've got this guy's now doing it, and this guy's joined us, and it's like, incredible. So, so how's it actually going at the moment? I mean, are you massively overfunded so far?
Yeah, we just hit 195,000 literally moments ago, which has just unlocked the first kind of anthology of adventures by a whole bunch of different writers. And we've funded, I think, Conan the Thief, Conan the Barbarian, the Book of Skelos, which is extra magic. We've also got the Player's Guide and the core book and a collector's edition in leather, dripping in blood, of course. So yeah, we've done really well. We've funded a lot and some tile sets and all sorts of stuff. And we've got a lot of books still to come. So it just shows the real love for Conan out there. We're hoping to make it a real alternative to the other fantasy role-playing game options that you have.
And as far as the Kickstarter is concerned, I mean, I know when you did, for example, when we last spoke to you, we were doing Acton Cthulhu, which is cool. It's a couple of years ago now, isn't it?
That's right. I think it's actually 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how we started right at the beginning.
That has produced so much cool stuff.
Yeah,
that's been really, really good. And so, are the similar sort of options coming for?
Yeah, and we actually try and keep the same pledge level names, so people kind of get to know what they get rather than having to learn a whole new load of phrases. So we've got this. We always have this bundle like the PDF Master that gets you about £200 worth of PDFs for £40. And then you've got the 60 quid print and PDF master, which gets you the beautiful core book and all the PDFs that we unlock again, which ends up being worth about £250. So it's kind of crazy deals, really. Because everyone's supporting us, we try and give away as much as we can that's easy to give away.
Yeah.
Obviously, then it's up to you whether you want to choose to buy the actual physical hardbacks, and we give those, at a discount. They're going to be about £20, maybe a bit more if we unlock more page count, but people can get them for £15 as an add-on. So you're getting a beautiful, gorgeously printed, sewn hardcover, full colour hardback for £15.
So Chris, if somebody doesn't do much in the way of role playing,
yeah,
but did back the Conan board game quite heavily,
I wonder who that could be.
Would there be any advantage in backing this one if that person wasn't much of a role player? Would there be any sort of crossover?
Totally. And actually, we're introducing a pledge that gets you all the tile sets that we're doing, because I'm a big fan of the board game as well. I backed it too. And so we love the guys there. We're talking about some cool ideas that we're going to announce later in the month. But in the meantime, the tile sets that we've unlocked, they are these really, really cool adventure locations. They're not designed as an endless series of geomorphic corridors and rooms to plug together. They are really cool, beautiful landscapes where you would have an encounter in a role-playing game. You can actually connect them together. They have these clever connecting tiles that can connect some jungle to some ruins to some desert if you really want. But the idea is to create these really great spaces. And they have movement spaces, not square grids on them. The actual PDFs will have a hex and a squared overlay that you can switch on and print if you want to print them at home on your printer. But the actual printed tiles will have movement spaces pretty much like the Monolith board game tiles. So the idea, of course, is get the board game because you've got a massive pile of great miniatures to use with your role-playing game straight away. If you've got the board game, get the tiles because it gives you a load more tiles to use and to come up with scenarios for. And of course, for role players, if they like using miniatures, not everyone does, but if you get the board game, you've also got a massive amount of great adventure areas that you can use for your role playing. And the 2D20 system uses more like zones. It's not about, okay, you're 10 squares away. It's, I'm in this zone and this zone is a bunch, it's barrels full of rotting fish and a slippery floor. The next zone is darkened shadows and crumbling ruins. So it's a bit like Fate in that you kind of describe what is the sort of important features about the area because you can use those. Yeah. And it's, that the zone with the crumbling ruins is one zone away. Beyond that might be the long arch hallway with an archer at the other end. And so it's, it's a couple of zones away for me to get into close combat. It's not 27 squares away. You don't have to calculate range. It's just, well, if you're a couple of zones, I can run, one zone and get into combat, that kind of thing. So it really simplifies it down. And it's brilliant because we can tie it with the board game and just make it compatible, which is nice. So yes, sorry, I was going to say there will be a pledge, which I think is about a week away from being added, but it will get you all 4 of the planned tile sets. So about 32 large tiles and 32 half-size medium tiles, which is a huge number.
Ooh.
Yeah, ooh. and maybe something else as well, which I can't tell you about yet. That's very exciting. Oh, and also, when we get to 200 grand, there's also something else that we're going to unveil, which I will tell you now, depending on when you put this out, is a big double-sided poster tile map of a forbidden temple on one side and a jungle ruin on the other side. So it's all, again, movement spaces. It's a big, it's basically 8 times the size of our rule books, which aren't A4, they're American letter size. So it's 8 times that. So it's all folded down, but it's a really big map that you can play adventures on as well. So that's what we're unlocking for everyone as a blessing of Mitra at 200,000. So only £5,000 away now. And that's going to be with anyone who's at sort of 60 quid and up gets that in print with their core book as a bonus. And the 40 quid PDF master gets that in PDF as a bonus as well.
Oh, well, that's another one I'm backing in.
I was going to say, it's like, yeah, okay.
I'm going to be in so much trouble.
Yeah. Just to clarify, is it going to be one of these things that when you actually produce, obviously, you've got a pledge level for all the tiles. Do you have an add-on level for those tiles as well, or will you be having?
You can add each tile set on its own as a print set for 20 quid, which is it's quite cheap. There's also a £30 PDF of all 4 sets of tiles on its own, and each set of tiles is going to come with a PDF suggesting what we call doom spends for the GM for the tile. So, as I mentioned, this tile might be, barrels of rotting fish and a slippery floor. This tile might be crumbling ruins. So in a crumbling ruins, there's a risk of ruins, blocks of stone falling on you and tripping up on sort of plant life that's growing across the ruins. So it gives you suggestions for how the GM can make that tile interesting for the encounter.
And if you had the PDF master, would you still have to pledge for the tiles extra?
Yeah, the PDF master gets you every single book that's unlocked, so it's already a good deal. Yeah. If you want PDFs, it's another 30 quid. The other way of doing it is if you go for the 100 quid PDF subscription, you get every single book we make and PDF tile set and card deck set for 2 years from when we deliver the core book in the summer. So it means you get so effectively you get 4 sets of tiles, 4 sets of card decks, plus all the books that you could possibly want. So that's quite a good deal as well. Or you can just get them individually.
Right. And how long is this Kickstarter left to run?
That's a very good question. It's 20th of March.
20th of March.
Okay. Day.
Okay, so this is
25 days. Yeah.
25 days, right? Okay, so this is going out on the 1st of March. So when you hear this, for all you Conan board game backers, including 3 people, 3 people that you're listening to, I think we might be wandering over and adding something and backing another Kickstarter. What's the phrase? Sold.
Okay, great.
Good stuff. Well, we thought we'd kind of get a bit of information on that because, as I say, we were quite interested. So, oh dear. Now, a lot of people may know you, maybe not so much from Acton Cthulhu, which is when we first spoke, but possibly from the Thunderbirds board game, which you ran. It was about a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was actually about a year ago.
Yeah. So, how's that gone?
It's been amazing. It was incredibly busy, and we funded 3 expansions and a role-playing expansion, and we actually delivered the base game only 2 weeks late in October.
Which, considering all the add-ons you had into it, isn't bad going.
The guys had spent a long time developing it, and so we were actually pretty prepared. And it's the other thing. It's with role-playing games, you've got so many people involved that at some point someone's life falls apart, and that has a knock-on effect, and you get delays. And it was so many people, like editors and writers and artists, and more writers and more editors and more artists. You can't help but think, things get in the way. And with board games, you generally have a lot less people. You've got 1 or 2 people working on the design. You've got obviously playtesters, you've got a graphic designer. So it's very, very compact. Maybe some sculptors and things. So it's a lot easier to manage. And we were late with the expansions. They're just shipping, middle of March, and they were supposed to ship in December, but the rules just needed more time. But, I'm actually still amazed, but we're barely 3 months late with that, which I think is pretty good.
And as I say, of course, there was an awful lot of stuff to cram into the add-ons, weren't there? I mean, loads of extra models and bits and pieces. I happen to be working with a guy who pledged for. I think he pretty much went all in for everything, and we played the game, and very pleased to say we think it's great. In fact, awesome. Dave Luff, my usual partner in crime, playing partner in crime, reckons it's probably the best cooperative game he's played.
Oh, brilliant! That's great to hear. I mean, it's obviously it's got a lot of different bells and whistles than Pandemic. Obviously, it's got dice for one thing. There's a certain element of luck to it. You can, and it really plays. I mean, I was a huge fan of Thunderbirds as a kid, and it really does play like you're playing a series. And you're going through all these missions, and typically you lose, but you really enjoy losing, and you want to play again. There's even one guy on Board Game Geek that plays with just one dice.
What?
He's so insane, yeah. So it's great. So many people have been coming up with extra variants, of course. And I don't know if you know, we do stretch goals in every Kickstarter for all our previous Kickstarters.
Oh, right, okay. No, I wasn't aware of that.
Infinity unlocked they unlocked a plot generator for Mutant Chronicles. It unlocked Brains' notepad for Thunderbirds. And that is basically, we're doing a call out for fans to send in their game variant ideas. Maybe a different card or a mission scheme card or a rule idea. And Matt's going to go through them all. And he's going to comment on them as if he's Brains. We're going to pick the best ones. And they're going to go in a sort of 12 to 15 page booklet in PDF, looking like Brains' handwriting, scribbling, oh yeah, we're going to need a bigger engine for this one. And, this is rubbish or whatever, So just lots of fun ideas from the fan base of, variant ideas for the rules. So that's what we unlocked as part of the Infinity. And we'll be doing the same thing with Conan. There's going to be another Thunderbird stretch goal at some point in the Conan stretch goal, which is, funnily enough, probably at exactly the same amount we raised. If we get to the exact same amount we raised with Thunderbirds, then that will unlock their stretch goal.
Cool. Right, that sounds like I'm definitely going to have to back Conan for other reasons.
Yeah, and the other thing, you don't have to back the Kickstarter to get the bonus for Thunderbirds. Everyone in Thunderbirds will get the bonus regardless. So it's not a cunning plan to get everyone who's a Thunderbirds board game player to buy a role-playing game they really don't want. It's just they're going to get it anyway. It's just a kind of nice thing. We're successful. We want everyone else to benefit who's helped us get here.
That's really cool. Oh, what a great idea. So
Sorry, I've been a bit quiet because I've been pledging things.
Yeah, I just saw. It just went up again.
Would it be rude to say, okay, Mr. Hobbs, what have you done?
I think we all know what I've done, Neil.
No. I can guess.
It's Conan. I'm weak. There's stuff.
There's stuff. Yes, I know.
Have you seen the artists that are in there? That book's going to be gorgeous.
Yeah, and we're doing an art book as well, which has come about because we've got so many artists. And we've still got more. We've got 2 more to announce this week, I think. One of them tied to another book as well, but they get bigger and bigger. It's a bit crazy. Actually, we might have a third. The weird thing is, we keep having, because we've got so many people. Now we get a lot of the big names going. Oh, well, actually, can I draw a cover as well? It's like word is spreading.
Nice.
So at some point, we just have to go out. Actually, I think we've probably got enough now. So when you've got more big name artists than Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, then it's a bit crazy.
Trying to put this temptation behind me.
Sorry. Are you trying to say, let's actually move on to the real reason why we got Chris on the show, shall we?
Yeah, I can't afford anymore.
Okay, so we didn't actually get Chris on the show to talk about Conan at all. Or Thunderbirds, for that matter. Indeed.
Yeah. But when has that ever stopped us going off on several random tangents simultaneously?
Indeed, why break a habit of a lifetime? Now, originally, very intriguing. Originally, this was all just before, I think it was just before Christmas, wasn't it, Chris? You put out a couple of announcements, kind of going,
we're going to be making a war game with Airfix.
Yeah.
It was like, and I think everybody kind of went, ooh.
Yeah.
It's like, we'll tell you about it next year. It's next year. Well, I was immediately intrigued because that's how I got into wargaming, and maybe for a lot of people of a certain age, I started wargaming set rules called Operation Warboard, which were designed to be used with.
I've got the book here.
I got the book. Oh yeah, Gavin and Bernard Lyle. Yeah, good stuff.
And great ones were like the Donald Featherstone books and the the old Airfix little hardback books they did as the sort of excerpts from the magazine.
They were all designed to be used with Airfix figures and models and what have you. So at the point when you turned around and went, oh, and by the way, we're producing a new war game with Airfix, it was like, I'm all ears. So, how did you get involved with this? Because obviously you're primarily known as a role-playing producer and obviously board games as well. So how did you get involved with Airfix?
Well, I'll tell you how I started gaming was I started playing Dungeons and Dragons when I was about 9 with my brother and his girlfriend. At the same time, I was my mum had taken me away to her sister's for the weekend in Gloucester, and she dragged me into this awful knitting shop. I guess it was actually an art shop because they had all kinds of stuff in it. And for some reason, they had this wall of sci-fi and fantasy images at the back. And I kind of got closer and it was games. And I discovered this game, Steve Jackson's Ogre. And for the rest of the weekend, when I picked up this, it was only like £3 or something. The rest of the weekend, I struggled with the ratio combat rules and got excited about these sort of hex-based war game where this giant robot tank tried to smash the headquarters of this little sort of army of tanks and infantry. And so I suddenly got into the world of fantasy gaming and board war games. And then I started wargaming with 15mm Napoleonics with my brother, and eventually started getting sort of fantasy role-playing figures and doing big war games with them. This is kind of how Dungeons and Dragons started, actually. And so I had this whole background in playing war games as a kid, and as I grew older, with my friend Stuart Newman, who I wrote Star Blazer Adventures with, we used to do, Warhammer, and we would create our own simple rules for the big range of Star Wars miniatures they had back in the 90s, the metal ones by West End Games. And then we made a simple rule set for Epic just so we could play ridiculously big battles with as much stuff as we wanted. And so I've always been a wargamer. And I actually remember the room and the battle I was playing with my friend Johnny. And I was probably about 6. And I remember this valley we created of Lego trees and Britain's farmhouse hedges, and we had all these Airfix figures and the plastic tanks and some model tanks. And of course, as kids up until that point, we'd been making machine gun sounds and knocking over soldiers just for the fun of it. And then I remember that day going, why don't we roll dice? And that's how many soldiers we get to knock over. And then very quickly that day, and then over the course of our next few battles, we kind of created this sheet of paper with crazy little scribbles on of, tanks can roll 2 dice and you can't kill the commander unless you blah, blah, blah. So we had all this sort of mad little rules, and that kept us playing longer, because I think we probably at that point would have gone on to something different that was more organized or not just making silly sounds. And so, cut long story short, last year I was at the Toy Fair in London, and we were walking past the Hornby stand, because their Airfix is part of Hornby and Scale Extrix and everything now. And I just, off the spur of the moment, I just walked straight in and right up to the guy that looked like he knew what he was doing. That just turned out to be Jim, the marketing manager. And I just basically told him that story. I said, I remember when I was a kid, this kept us playing, we came up with our rules. This kept us playing with the Airfix soldiers. And wouldn't it be great to create a war game that gets mums and dads playing with their plastic soldiers, with their kids again? It gives anyone an excuse to get their Airfix figures out of the attic, play a game. It gives kids an excuse to keep playing it. And they loved it. And we got a deal and we started working on it. And we had this rule set that we'd been working on for a couple of years called One War, that was going to be part of Acton Cthulhu, and it's a card-driven war game. Really fun. And the idea was it's not about really complex organizational charts where you must have 3 Shermans, otherwise you can't have this. It was fast playing, and I want to do a big battle in half an hour or an hour, not 3 hours. And I want to be able to build my force really quick, not have to go over charts of tables and numbers and points values. So that became Airfix Battles. It's super simple and really fast. And the Jim had played at Airfix, had played Games Workshop in Warhammer when he was younger, and he'd been wanting to introduce a game to his kids. So he really got it and just loved what we were doing. So here we are making this awesome game. And it really is about, what have you got in your lunchbox, that plastic lunchbox in the attic? I've got a Sherman. I've got half track. I've got enough soldiers for about 3 squads. Well, great. We'll use that then. You don't have to have a certain number of captains and a certain number of soldiers and a certain number of this. We have very simple kind of ranks on the force cards. You've got a deck of force cards. You have your captain. The captain lets you have a certain number of units, and then you need another officer to add in more units, and it builds very simply like that, and everything's got points value, which is basically its rank.
Yeah.
And so it's so easy. So I could even randomly draw my force if I wanted to, and then you'd use the same points to build your army. Or I could go, what have I actually got that I want to use? And you don't need machine gunners to have a machine gun unit. You use those annoying guys with the minesweepers.
Oh, yeah.
The ones that you were always like the sort of, why do they put those in the box? Anyway, so, and the German infantry set by Airfix has got lying down machine gunners. The American paratroopers has got lying down snipers. So you can kind of just mix them. You just will use whatever soldiers you want to represent that unit. And every unit has got there's a little counter that is like Charlie Squad, for example, that goes with your force card. So you can use any plastic figures with the force cards. You don't have to have machine gunners or mortar guys. And Airfix didn't make mortar or heavy machine guns for the American infantry, for example. They made mortars for the paratroop set. So the idea is you just put a counter on the force card for your squad and a counter with the figures on the board. So you know that's that squad. That's that machine gun unit.
Right.
So you can use any plastic figures. You can use any tank, because you might not have again, Airfix don't make a Wolverine M10 tank destroyer, but you might have the card. Or they currently don't make their Stug, but they do have one that they kind of make every so often. So if you can't get one, you can just substitute a different tank, put the counter with it, and it's fine.
Right, okay.
And of course, you could use any other plastic or even metal wargame units with the game. It's not forcing you to use Airfix. The point is it's a really fun rule set. We even have wound counters on the reverse of the infantry counters, because of course you get counters for all the infantry, all the tanks and vehicles that you need, and guns for the campaign, so that it actually is a playable game out of the box. You don't need your plastics. You can buy this game, go home, you might be on holiday, and then you get it out and play the game.
Oh, right. So the box itself doesn't come with any figures then?
No, and I'll tell you why we made that decision is it would have made it double the price.
Right.
And let's face it, everyone's got German soldiers and British soldiers and American soldiers somewhere in the attic. And if you haven't, they're £5 in the local toy shop for a whole platoon, 48 figures. So what we wanted to do is just give you what you don't have, which is the cool rule set, the cards, the maps, the counters. And so you can just play it just with your counters, you've got enough counters to play loads of battles, and great little top-down art of like Sherman tanks and Panzer IV tanks and half tracks and things. So you've got everything you need to play, but of course you can swap them out for your figures. Or let's face it, none of us need an excuse to go, well, I must go down the toy shop and do some research.
Have you managed to talk Airfix into resurrecting a few of their older ranges?
Well, they've got quite a lot in the reason why we picked the 1/72nd scale is they've got 1/76th scale vehicles and then 172nd Infantry. So they've got pretty much everything that we needed. Like I said, the Stug's out of production at the moment, but they'll bring it back at some point, or you can get it on eBay. So they've got a lot of stuff that's available, but of course, like every other manufacturer, none of them made everything, so there is never going to be all the vehicles you need. There's a lot. And so, of course, you can use stand-ins. And that's why we give you the counters to match up your force card, your squad card, or your machine gun card with the troops on the board who are representing your machine gunners.
Yeah.
So it's really easy.
Yeah, I was also thinking of things like the infamous coastal defence set.
I actually had the coastal defence set and the bunker as well. So we're actually including those in a bonus map set where you'll be able to have a kind of beach landing maps and some kind of more accessories and things. We're also planning an expansion which introduces to loads of different planes as actual units on the table. At the moment in the base set, you get an airstrike as a kind of air effect, as opposed to actually having a plane to fly around, just to keep the kind of base set simple as possible.
Oh, so when you say the bunker, that's the famous one that's got it's a little bunker on one side and and the big gun on the other end.
That's it.
Oh, right, cool.
Yeah, and the coastal defence set's the one with the massive, great twin, whatever they are.
Guns and Navarone.
Guns and Navarone,
yes. It's the one I really desperately want to get hold of a copy for my 15mm D-Day games.
Ah, great. Yeah, you can get them pretty easily on eBay.
Yeah, they're not cheap though.
I've got a set, I think, but I don't know if I've got the guns anymore. But they were the ones that fired matchsticks as well.
Yeah, weren't they?
Yeah. So I'm assuming at some point you're producing the pontoon bridge.
Yeah, I mean it'll probably be a feature in one of the maps. So we're trying to build in stuff that everyone remembers, of course.
Yeah. You mean like do you remember with the coastal defence set and the like, there were those not vac form, but the squidgy plastic GMC truck.
Yeah.
And was there a Churchill and a Patton?
Yeah, it was a Patton tank and a Churchill. I think it was even a chieftain.
Tiger.
It was a chieftain.
Yeah.
And I think it was a tiger. They had a duck as well.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a chieftain. It was the crikey, Centurion.
Yeah, Centurion.
Could have been. Yeah. But yes, there was. I remember the duck.
Yeah.
Because they both had that canvas cover, which I seem to remember was actually the same piece between the truck and the duck.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, I feel old.
Oh,
they were great. They were great. I've still got the boxes for those. It's amazing.
Oh wow! And the bendy polyurethane tiger. Back in the day. And the landing craft.
Just imagining our listeners going all nostalgic at the moment.
I remember when they brought out a set which was a German half-track and a gun, and I didn't get it, and I always wished I had.
Oh, that
it was right. I think it was the very last one they brought out.
It was a 1-ton half-track with a 37mm anti-tank gun. I think I seem to remember having a couple back in the day.
Guys.
Yeah.
Airfix D-Day Coastal Defence Fort on the Airfix website. £16.99.
Well, hey!
I forgot they've actually they're selling it at the moment.
I may actually have to have a brief splurge moment.
Well,
it's your turn, mate. That's the last one.
As I say, Hobbs has done it already. I think it's about to be your turn.
So, did anyone else here used to play the Airfix figure game? When you used to do a pose of one of the Airfix figures and the other person had to guess which box set it came from.
Ooh, that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Especially
that's your arts variant.
Yeah. It was great fun. In fact, I remember doing it about 5 years ago. It's the guy from the grenade. I'm now making the pose.
You were less than sober at the time, weren't you?
I was very drunk. My wife was rubbish at the game.
Oh, shocking. Shocking. So let's try and drag this back on track, shall we?
Please excuse me. I'm just staring at pictures on the Airfix website and having a moment. Ignore me. Carry on without me.
Just go on mute so we can't hear the clicking.
Right. Okay. So going back to right. So you got the introductory box sets coming out with the cards and the top-down cutouts.
Yeah.
And boards.
It comes with 2 large double-sided maps, so you've got quite a few variations of battles you can play, and you can add terrain on top.
Right. Okay. So, how big are those maps that, or boards or whatever, or that you're playing on? What sort of size is the game designed to go onto?
It's 2 A2 double-sided maps that fold out.
Right.
It's quite good size then.
Yeah. So is it designed that you put you put the 2 A2s up together, or is 1 A2 one?
You can actually have a battle on one. One map can be a small battle that's enough for, like, say 2 squads and a machine gun unit and a commander or a tank to have a quick fun battle in 30 minutes. Or you could use 2 together, lengthways, sideways, to make a much bigger battle.
Okay, so that's the introductory set. I think we'd like to discuss a little bit about how the actual game hangs together. But just want to also ask a question, because it's currently up for pre-order, isn't it? And you've got a deal on the pre-order, haven't you?
Yes, so you get a special bonus set of cards. I think it's 24. So we're adding in some British forces, because the base game is American infantry and tanks and German infantry and tanks. So the bonus set gets you some British forces and also some specials. So, like, there's the Sherman Calliope, the rocket launcher tank. There's the King Tiger. There's the Stug in the bonus set, and some other kind of fun stuff as well. So gives you some cool extras to beef up your fighting forces, and you get that free if you pre-order. And also, we're going to have that at Salute as well. We're hoping the game's going to be produced in time for Salute.
Oh.
But if you order it or buy it at Salute, you'll also get that pre-order pack as well.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about what the game represents and what you're getting. How does it actually work?
Well, so you take turns to play a command card, and the command card typically says move 1 infantry unit and fire. Or it might say move an infantry unit twice and fire. Or it might say move 2 armor, or 2 vehicle units rather. We have vehicles, not tanks and vehicles. We kind of group them together. Guns are part of infantry. So the command cards give you different options. A bit like Memoir 44 says, okay, move 3 armored units across the board, or move 3 units on the left flank. Ours basically says, move 2 armored units and fire once anywhere on the board, or move an infantry once, fire and move again. So it gives you all these different kinds of strategies, and it also gives you 2 different options. It's not just move an infantry once and fire. It's move an infantry once and fire, or move a tank twice and fire, So you've got a bit of strategy in the cards that you have. You can always use a card to move something once and fire once. You can always do something. So you'll also have an interrupt. So I have an interrupt card that says, stop, I'm firing at you. So you're going, I've got you. I'm going to move my tank up. Go, stop, I'm shooting my bazooka from this infantry unit. Or I go, stop, I'm not actually there. I'm playing an interrupt move. I've actually moved away from the building you're about to assault. So I don't want you to attack me. So you've got this ability to interrupt the movement and have these sort of surprises happen. And you also, obviously, because you don't know what cards are in the other player's hands, you have no idea what they're really going to do. And that gives a bit of the fog of war, because you don't really know where their forces are. You know roughly where they are, but he might well play a move twice on his tank next, which will move a lot further than you thought he could. You might be able to play these interrupts. You might have an air assault or an artillery barrage that you can drop on you, which is quite deadly. So you take turns playing a command card, and you can play a number of command cards based on your commanders. So both sides don't get the same number. For example, a commander might give you, say, the ability to, a major might give you the ability to play 3 command cards during a turn, and the ability to hold 5 cards in his hand. You might also have a sergeant that gives you 1 extra play and 1 extra hand size. So I've got a total of 6 command cards in my hand at any one time. If I lose the sergeant, I'm going to lose 1 command card in my hand every turn. Between the two of them, we can play 4 cards, but we might have 6 units. So we've got to decide which units we're going to move. So you've got that tactics of where do you focus your abilities? Everything can only move or use 1 command card in the turn, except for interrupts, which can go on top. And pretty much everything's on the cards. You've got the number to hit. Everything uses a D6, and it uses 1 D6 per figure. So if you've got 10 figures in a squad, you're rolling 10 dice, typically to get a 4, a 5, or a 6 to hit. If the enemy is in cover, they get their same dice to defend. They get a saving throw. They get to roll those to see if they save. If they're not in cover, there's no saves. They just die. So it's very quick and straightforward. We've got beautifully simple symbols on the cards to reflect movement speed, the rank of the unit, which is both the cost to have it in your force, but it's also the victory points you get if you destroy that unit.
Right.
And the cool thing, of course, if you can take out an enemy's commander, you cripple him because you're taking away the ability to play command cards to control his force and the ability to have command cards in their hand. And so that's obviously very tempting. And commanders also lend their morale value to units. So if I'm suffering a morale result of pinned or retreat, I get to roll my dice using the commander's value to try and avoid that. And it's very simple. A card, you just turn it to show that it's pinned, and you turn it again to show that it's retreating. So, and we do have pinned rules, which is very important for a World War II war game, because you need to be able to pin a unit before you move up an assault, because it's deadly. If you move up a unit to assault, they get to shoot you with no saving throw before you move into their space. So you've got to try and pin them so that they can't do that. And it's really, we work really hard to keep that so simple in the game. And it works really well. And the other cool thing is we've got solo rules as well, because I grew up without my brother, who had got into war games. He was off to university. So we'd moved to a little town, and I didn't know anyone around there who wanted to play war games. So I just figured out my own rules. And it's so important to have solo rules, because a lot of us, you know what it's like, your mates aren't always available when you really want to play a game. And so we've got this very simple chart that you draw a command card for the enemy force. And here's the cool thing. Do you remember how you used to split a Mars bar between your friends? Did your mum ever go, right, one of you cut it in half and the other person chooses which piece? So what you do, you set up both sides. Yeah?
Yeah.
And then you roll the dice to see which side you're going to play. And then you draw command cards for the other side, and you look at this chart to basically tell you how they will play. And it's very simple, and it's really ruthless. We lose a lot of the time playing the enemy. So it's great fun. And there's going to be a much more in-depth solo play set within the collector's edition rule set.
That's a brilliant segue.
Yeah.
Because obviously, okay, so you said that the initial introductory set is coming out in April, and you're hoping to have it full in time for Salute. But you've also mentioned that you're producing a collector's handbook. So what's the difference, and what's going to be in the collector's handbook that isn't in the introductory wargame?
Obviously, you'll have guessed we're playing on maps here. So we're playing on squared maps with counters or your plastic figures. But what about all of us we've got all this great wargames terrain, and okay, we've got time to set it up. So the collector's edition not only compiles a lot of extra rules for the basic edition of the game with the squared maps, but it also says, okay, let's do away with the maps, get your ruler out. Now we're moving in inches or centimeters. And this is how to play the game as a more traditional war game with all your model tanks and figures, and with your real terrain, with the real Guns of Navarone plastic set, with the real bridge, with the real forward command post, or whatever terrain you've got.
Yeah.
And it introduces very cool fog of war rules where you're moving a unit around. You don't quite know what they are. It gives you the ability to have other forces on the map that aren't controlled by either side. It has more in-depth solo play rules so that another enemy unit could be moving around you, and then it splits. If you haven't identified it, it might split into two, and one might move up and start shooting at you, and the other one might flank you. So it's got some really fun, again, card-driven ways of controlling that. And then there's going to be a much more in-depth campaign in the book. And then just like a lot of extra rules, like the air rules, so you can have fighters playing battles out on the tabletop as well, and a lot more kind of ideas and added value.
So when you say fighters on the battlefield, so are they going to be just air to ground, or is that going to be introducing some form of air to air combat as well?
Yeah, so you'll be able to fight air to air as well as air to ground.
Oh right, so
ground to air as well.
Oh, so potentially you almost have two games in one, because you can actually have it as we now have a dogfight game.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I mean, that again, it's super simple. It's based off the there's an air expansion for the introductory box, so that lets you kind of model Airfix, Spitfire, or actually Corgi, their other sort of part of the family, do a much better scale, sort of smaller scale Spitfires and Messerschmitts that are perfect for the scale of the tiles. So you can have a great fun little air battle as well at the same time.
That sounds really good.
I mean, the idea is that it really is. It's got to feel. We always wanted it to feel like a war game.
Yeah.
But it's got to feel like the war game that you can have a really, really, really big battle, like loads of tanks, loads of platoons, and it doesn't take 5 hours.
Yeah.
And worst of all, it doesn't take an hour to set up, because I love the fact that I literally could deal at random some cards, and then you count up my points value and match it. Or we could just pick what we've got and match it. And the points values are very simple. Like one of the commanders might be 5 points, an infantry unit might be 2 points, and they're rank stars. So they're like stars on the cards. It's so easy. And they're also the victory points value of killing that unit as well.
Yeah.
So, and we've got, really, really great sort of little Normandy campaign. Oh, and the other thing is if you pre-order, you get the Operation Cobra bonus campaign as well. So you get 2 campaigns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so and then does the collector's handbook come with a further campaign in it, or was there or even like a campaign or a scenario generator?
We actually are having a scenario generator, but there will be a campaign that is set up for the normal style of wargame board. Right. And you'll be able to easily take the scenarios from the squared map campaign to use in a normal war game as well. Because you just basically you use the same terrain, just strip out the squares.
Okay, so that is the first 2 sets of stuff that you kind of announced at the time. Is there anything else you can tell us about what's coming up further on from that? Or is it a case of at the moment we're saying, okay, we have these 2 products, let's see how they go, and then we'll go, and then obviously we'll carry on from there.
You'll be able to get the collector's edition and just the card decks if you don't want the introductory kit. If you're like, no, I don't really want that, I'll rather wait and get the whole thing. That's obviously going to be later in the year.
Yeah.
There will be a extra force deck that we're going to do, which is things like the Desert Rats, the Africa Corps, all the other classic Airfix sets. There's the
Japanese and US Marines.
Japanese, US, all of that.
Yeah, Russians.
So we're going to add all of those in.
Cool.
And we're also going to add in some famous commanders as well. So there'll be commanders that always come with a certain card. Like you might have Whitman, the ace tank commander, and he comes with a card that, for example, might say shoot, move again. Pretty lethal. So he always gets it in his hand at the start of the game to use. He's going to be good from the beginning. So we're going to be introducing some fun cards like that. And then we'll be doing, PDF, online downloads of mission scenarios, lots, with some fun challenges and things like that. And so the idea is to keep expanding it with more force decks, more command card options, more maps for the introductory games. You can just keep playing that. And then, of course, the collector's edition will be out there later in the year.
Yeah.
Are you just going to stick to World War II, Chris, or are you thinking of another period?
Well, yeah. Obviously,
what are the big period did Airfix produce plastic figures for?
Didn't they do some Napoleonics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they've got a great Napoleonic Waterloo set, of course, with the classic farmhouse. So
but don't forget, there's also the American Civil War and the Romans and the Ancient Britons and the World War One and
they do make World War One at the moment, but they don't do the ancients and the actually they've got a couple of the ancients in production.
And there was also a Robin Hood and a Sheridan Nottingham set.
There was. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what they're thinking of putting out. But I mean, Napoleonics would be an easy conversion because it's actually simpler unit-wise, and I think we could have a lot of fun with that. So, of course, we'll see how this first one does. I'm hoping that we've kind of got the attention of a lot of people. I mean, we had a great 7 pages in miniature war games that my brother interviewed me for. So, which was funny. He was the one I got into wargaming right at the beginning. I've got this feeling there's a lot of us. I mean, I think there probably isn't anyone who plays war games that didn't at some point have some Airfix figures. It's, just that natural beginning for a lot of people.
Are you considering having just releasing an extra set of rules for anybody who fancies using the 1/32 scale figures instead?
Well, actually, funny you should say that because I've got a lot of those. Sad to say, I think I had the entire set in 1/32 scale. Wow, yeah. They're great figures. I love them as well. Yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, so rather than platoon-based, it's squad-based or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
to be fair, if you've got the space, you could just use those figures with the larger scale, the kind of war game-based rules. So it depends how big a battle you want, of course.
Yeah. Because I mean, I suppose at the end of the day, if you're, if the basic game takes place on an A2 or an A1, you kind of upscale that to a 6x4 board. Yeah, you could almost play it with 54mm, couldn't you?
Yeah, and there's lots of great model kits, and I mean, I've still got the Airfix, the truck, the German half-track. I think I've got the Cromwell tank still, which I just brought them all back home from the attic. So it was amazing digging through.
I remember Airfix they did some of those in plastics. I found my Airfix plastic Cromwell the other day.
Yeah, that's
It's a great model, that is, yeah.
Yeah, because there was a battle set that came with this. It had the half track, the Cromwell, and it had a pillbox that shot out plastic discs, and it had a load of the figures and a map, and I think it had the farmhouse in it as well.
I think that was the D-Day assault.
Oh, it might have been, yeah. Yeah.
That sounds like Hobbs' Google Fury, that one, as we go along.
I am not on the Airfix site. I am.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hoping is people are going to pick this up in their local toy shop. Airfix are selling it as well. They're really behind it. They really believe in it because they see this great way of getting people playing toy soldiers again. So it's going to be in the model shops. It's going to be in the toy shops. It's going to be in your typical gaming stores as well. So we're really hoping a lot of people are going to grab this and just discover this whole joy of just playing fun battles again. And it will let us then really expand on the range and come up with lots of fun stuff for it.
I suppose, as you say, it's all about introducing new generations to the hobby, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and it's a whole lot nicer universe than 40k.
Yeah. There's no grim doom and gloom.
I would like it minuted, given how much slander I pick up for it, that it wasn't me that said that.
So noted, Mr. Whitaker. The beginner's box set is hopefully out in time for Salute.
Yeah.
Right, okay, and collector's edition coming late summer?
Yeah, late. I'd probably around September time because we're still playtesting the more complex rules for that. So we obviously want to get this out, get people playing it, which will also give us a little bit more feedback for tweaks. But yeah, I think it will be kind of September time for the collector's edition.
Good stuff. It sounds at the moment, Chris. It sounds like you're just tremendously busy.
You could say that, yeah. I mean, we finally moved into an office because we were working off corners of desks and sofas in our flat up until November last year. And it got to the point, it's me and Rita living together and working together all day long and in our house. So it just got ridiculous. So it was so great to finally get an office and everyone to be able to have space to do their job properly. And, it's amazing how things have grown since we spoke back in Acting Cthulhu days. It's, obviously with Mutant Chronicles and Infinity now and Conan happening, and we're just developing the Kung Fu Panda board game at the moment.
I'm sorry?
Kung Fu Panda.
Kung Fu Panda?
Yeah. We announced at Essen, so we're doing a really big fun Kung Fu Panda game with tiles and cool miniatures, and that's going to go to Kickstarter in the summer.
Right.
With DreamWorks. And then, of course, we're doing the Siege of the Citadel reboot with Richard Borg and Eric Lang and Kevin Wilson. That's the big... I don't know if you know, it was kind of like Space Crusade in America. It was in Europe as well, but it was based on the Mutant Chronicles universe. Right. And it was a big box of plastic aliens and marines and cool tiles and a giant cutout of a cathedral wall. And so we're redoing that, a new edition that's going to be in a Kickstarter later in the year. And it's just had an amazing cover done by Stefan Kopinski that does a lot of the Warhammer covers.
Yeah. Cool.
You do seem to be doing very well for good artist contacts.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's the one thing I learned is that get great artists because it just sells a game. And if you, obviously, when we first started, I didn't have any money to really put into it. So I, convinced Dim, our Acting Cthulhu artist, to do it on a percentage. So we did a first book. Everyone got a percentage. And that got us going. And then pretty soon I realized that I needed to pay for the art and pay for good art. And then as time's gone on, we've realized that we could pay for more and more art. And I never thought we'd get to this stage where we'd be bringing in really big names. And you can only do it with a Kickstarter. You'd be insane to do this if you weren't doing it through Kickstarter because the distributors just don't buy enough books to justify it. So the reason we can make this insanely high production value Conan role-playing game is because of Kickstarter. And, Thunderbirds wouldn't have happened without Kickstarter unless you were a Hasbro. And it's because they're so expensive to risk all that money up front. There's a good line, which is how to make a small fortune in gaming is to start with a big fortune.
Yes.
So, and,
not just true in gaming, certainly.
No, yes, of course. Yeah. So, we've been really blessed to have so many people support us in the Kickstarters. And, we're still a little family company. It's me and Rita and 3 or 4 other people in the office who aren't all full time. And then probably about 50, 60 people around the world who are artists and writers working on different projects. It still feels like a little family project. We're trying to keep that atmosphere and, we work really hard to keep all our backers happy. And that's why I'm up late and up early replying to people because it's like people are standing in your shop. You can't just ignore them and they've come to you to give you money. And so you've got to look after them, reply quickly. And, we bend over backwards to keep people happy and replace damaged stuff. And, because it's those people that are paying our bills. If we don't keep them happy, we might, what's the point of doing it? So, and that's why we do stuff like give away extra stretch goals for previous Kickstarters with the current one, because it's like, well, we're not forgetting everyone that got us here. We still appreciate the Acting Cthulhu backers from 3 years ago, because without them, we wouldn't be here. So it's nice to be able to give them something extra, not necessarily massive, but, we gave them from Infinity, they got an extra adventure by a big name writer, like for demo games. So it's nice to be able to just give back. And once you get to a certain size, and we're still tiny really compared to, like a Fantasy Flight Games or a lot of the really, the bigger companies in the industry.
Yeah.
But at least we're getting to that point where we can do nice things for the community and say thanks.
Cool. Well, Chris, it's been fantastic to speak to you.
Yeah, cheers.
Thank you so much for coming back on the show.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, as I say, it's been great to see just how well you've done since we last spoke. Acton Cthulhu was brilliant, produced so much good stuff, and to see you just gone from strength to strength ever since. So it's great to catch up with you, and a real success story for a company.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
So all the very best with what's going on at the moment. Thank you for divesting us of some money for Conan. And we look forward to seeing what you're going to do with Airfix.
Brilliant.
If not before, we'll probably catch up with you at Salute.
And we'll see you there. That'd be great. We'll show you the game.
Look forward to it. That's it. It's a date. We'll look forward to it. So,
all right,
so it's been great to chat, and
take
care. And we'll speak to you soon.
Cheers.
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 Neil, have you pressed record?
This time I pressed record.
Are you sure, Neil?
It's running. We've been recording for 16 seconds, 70. Yeah, it's now recording.
Would you like to tell the listeners what's just happened?
Okay, so we've been recording multiple sections for this podcast this evening. And so after each section, save it, put it away so it's all secured away. Okay. We decided that a section we were going to do was based on a mailbag question, all to do with tell us what is actually encouraging Mr. Whitaker to tell everybody what he really thought about Age of Sigmar.
So I did.
So he did, and I chimed in with what I really thought. Not so much about Age of Sigmar.
It was good.
It's not so much about what Age of Sigmar, but what I thought about Games Workshop for doing what they did to the Warhammer community. And it was.
And you swore. I've never heard you swear before.
You can tell I wasn't impressed.
Wild, Neil.
It was. It was bleeptastic.
It made Hobbs' earlier rant about Shield Maiden look like a walk in the park.
Yeah.
One slight issue.
What didn't you do?
Well, I suddenly went, oh, hang on a second, how long is this running for, just to kind of check times, at which point I suddenly realised that I'd failed to hit the record button. So we had this quite entertaining and interesting rant going on with some very reasoned arguments, but we were being quite, it was an interesting one. Except for the fact that you won't know, because
we didn't record it.
I think some sort of penance is in order, Mike.
Yes, I do.
Now, I believe Neil took a day off the other day, didn't he? When playing games. And look what's happened.
I'm sorry, guys.
Now, obviously, we can't tell Neil that he's not allowed to go and play with his toys again.
Yeah, try and get out the stick.
But I think you should go and sit on the stairs and reflect on the nature of your crime.
Yeah.
And by the way, you get yes, for my penance, I get to do all the editing until the end of this show.
I certainly think you get to edit this bit.
Oh, dear. It was all going so well.
We could always try and do it again, because that'll be done with such feeling.
I've blown a good rant on that. You'll have to wait until another time.
Yes, well, yes, it's like a defibrillator. Yeah, it's gone off. We'll have to wait to recharge.
Yeah,
another time. So something to look forward to on a future show.
It was very good, though.
It was. I'll tell you,
fine rantage.
It'll be worth listening to when it finally turns up. Gee, I just cannot believe I did that.
How many times do I say to you, have you remembered to press record?
Not often enough, obviously.
Do you know why I didn't? Because I was too busy trying to find the blooming mute button.
And on that note, I think we shall bring this one into land. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. Obviously, so lots of different things.
Real nostalgia kick.
Oh gosh,
yeah, a bit of a nostalgia kick, but yet again we end up talking about Kickstarters.
Yep, and I'm off to watch UFO.
Oh, it's I tell you, I mean, watch episode 8 and you're ready to slit your wrists. Oh, dearie me. I mean, no spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, Neil. I know the thing's been out for 40 years, but come on.
Come on. Yeah. Show a bit of mercy.
As I say, I just cannot, you just kind of, I remember some of the episodes and know what's going on, but I just didn't believe that it was as downbeat as it was. And, I cannot believe that at some point ATV thought it was a kids program. Because it was in the 5:15 tea time slot or whatever it was.
Was it on a Saturday morning slot?
Yeah, it was a Saturday morning slot at one point. I don't think they quite knew what to do with it. But it's definitely not a kids program.
Yeah, it's what TV tropes calls a crapsack world.
Indeed.
It was proper Cold War paranoia, wasn't it?
Gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go watch it all again now.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I'm 8 or 9 episodes in at the moment, and no, it's brilliant. I mean, it's in some ways, as far as the effects are concerned, well, some of the effects, your costumes and stuff don't age well.
No.
Or generally the stories are really, really good. Some of them you kind of think, okay, yeah, fair enough. But no, I think it was a show that was way ahead of its time.
Yeah.
And it would have been interesting to see, because they were going to make a sequel. They were going to make UFO 2. But because the original series didn't go down very well, they canned UFO 2, and UFO 2 turned into Space 1999. Because I never knew that was where Space 1999 came from. But basically, the whole point was UFO 2 was going to be completely based on the moon, with a bigger moon base, and then that turned into Space 1999, which was one of my favourite series. That's still a series that I remember watching as a small child, and being allowed to stay up till 9 o'clock to watch the first episode on a Friday night.
Kids these days with their streaming video.
Yeah. I know. I still remember staying up to watch Breakaway on that Friday night, the very first episode of Space 1999. And I remember when ITV did an ATV Resurgence week. And they went back and showed some of the ATV shows from the 70s. I think it's that's still good, like 10, 15 years ago when they did it. And they showed Wargames episode from Space 1999. And I watched it and suddenly remember thought, was it really this crap?
Yeah, I was going to say it hasn't aged well. But the Eagle is still
iconic,
isn't it? Yeah.
Who
had the Airfix kit?
I did. I had the Corgi kit. I had the lot.
Yeah, it was the Eagle and stuff was brilliant, but the show, no, didn't age well. Very much a child of the 70s. But
if only there was some place you could get miniatures suitable for series like UFO and Space 1999. God, if only somebody did
if only somebody did it.
And a set of rules to play them with.
Indeed.
That would be even better, Mike.
Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Mind you, having said that, if they did UFO, then they'd have to do some company, whoever it was, would have to do the female model, the females in the slinky silver uniforms with the silver miniskirts and the purple wigs.
That is true.
Mike will probably go off on another rant.
Or maybe not.
Oh, no, because they were part of their time.
Well, that's it. It's a period piece. And if one happened to look a little bit like Gabriel Drake,
Neil will be in his bunk.
Anyway,
thank you, Mr. Whitaker. No.
Spot the Firefly reference.
So I think it's time to finish this one up.
And on that note, I think we may get out of it.
Meeples Miniatures. sponsored by Crooked Dice this week.
It does seem like it, doesn't it? And Nostalgia Inc.
Yeah,
indeed. So thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll catch up with you again in a couple of weeks. So until then.
Well, we might have another rant. You never know.
Well, we might work our way up to it. That should be great. Actually, this time, remember to hit the record button.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah. Possibly the same rant.
So until then.
It's good night from me.
And it's good night from me.
And happy gaming, and it's good night.
Thank you for listening to the Meeples and Miniatures podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, why not share it with others by leaving us a review on iTunes? And if you have any comments or questions, you can always email the show. The address is info@meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. And you can also visit our webpage, where you'll find a complete episode archive, all the View from the Veranda podcasts, rules reviews, and our blog of hobby items and news, which is updated several times a week. This is also where you'll find the links to our presence on social media, and here you can follow us on Twitter or join our Facebook group. And finally, here you can also find details should you wish to support us by making a donation to the podcast. All this on the Meeples and Miniatures website, www.meeplesandminiatures.co.uk. The Meeples and Miniatures podcast is licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 3.0 Unported license. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Ying tong yidlai po.
Yidlai po.
Yaki daki daki. Ying tong yidlai po. Ying tong yidlai po. Ying tong yidlai po.
I don't know the second verse.
And if you've made it right to the end of this, at times slightly surreal episode of the Meeples and Miniatures podcast, if you'd like to tweet Eminent Podcast with the hashtag YingTong, it would be rather appreciated. Thanks once again, and hello to Jason Isaacs.